Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto discovered a legendary sword and built a small elite harem, Naruto Uzumaki x Kurenai x Anko x Mei x Yugao, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. The Hokage sighed looking at the team placements. This flawed system seemed to hurt more than help. Indeed, because Naruto had come in at the last year instead of being mid-class as he had been trying to do. Instead of excelling, he had wound up tied with Kiba Inuzuka for the dead last position of the class. No doubt due to tampering by the academy, but the Hokage had no proof, so he had to accept it. He did not expect more than 3 teams to pass the final test, but the question was who would get those teams. Kakashi Hatake was one. Sarutobi was considering his son for the Ina Shika Cho second generation. That left one spot to fill. The Hokage went and looked at the list for the Junin sensei and chuckled. Oh, this will be interesting. A drop of blood fell from the Hokage's nose before he wiped it and decided on the teams. He would let people plead their case later, but he was rather happy with the way he had the teams, and only someone with a very good argument would change them. The Hokage mused as he waited for more of his damned paperwork to arrive. The past 6 years had been good to Konoha. He had managed to wrest most of his power back at this point, though the council still held too much power. He had an iron grip when it came to enforcing the laws now. He chuckled as he thought of the pranks Naruto had played and hoped the boy realized that it was twofold. He was pretty sure he did, but Naruto was one of the people the Hokage had a hard time reading since he acquired his blade and began living on his own. Oh, he could get a bead on what Naruto was thinking, but he always managed to surprise him. That Anbu prank was hilarious. He sighed as he looked out at the Hokage monument when it shimmered and, wait a minute, shimmered. All of a sudden the Hokage monument was covered in paint for the Hokages. A tree painted on the first's face, a sweat drop on the second, a nosebleed for the third, and for the fourth, a yellow streak across his nose. Sarutobi was amused and angry at the same time. Funny for his grandson's skill and angry for showing him as a pervert and nothing more. Then a primate shimmered onto the third's face. Sarutobi nodded his head as if that settled the issue and started to laugh. Time skip that evening. All of the Junin sensei had arrived -1. The Hokage was waiting for this person and had told him to be here 3 hours earlier, so when he arrived 1 hour late, the Hokage sighed and said, "Welcome, Kakashi." Kakashi's eye narrowed. "You told me to come earlier than the actual time, didn't you?" The Hokage chuckled. "Now why would I do something like that?" Whistling innocently, before sporting a grin that had some of the former Anbu flinching. "Now then, let us get on with the team placements, shall we? Please, if you have any preferences, state them now." Kakashi spoke up. "I would like Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki." Many were surprised who would want the demon boy. The Hokage narrowed his eyes. "Why Naruto?" "Because they have a form of rivalry and it will spur them both on, but Sasuke must remain stronger for it to work," Kakashi stated. "So you would intentionally weaken a potential ninja just for the betterment of another?" Pathetic Kakashi. "Sasuke is granted, and Naruto. I will see." Kakashi seemed taken aback by the venom in the Hokage's voice before nodding and sitting down to read his favorite little book. Only to cry out, "My eye!" Someone had changed out his precious smut with yaoi. There was a chibi Naruto with a V sign. All the females chuckled when they noticed it and made notes to treat the boy nicer next time they saw him. Asuma spoke up. "I would like to request the next generation Ina Shika Cho." "Very well, any objections?" None of the Junins spoke up, so the Hokage nodded and jotted it down. "Granted." The Hokage looked up and noticed someone he was hoping for. Kurenai had made it to her Junin rank and she was willing to take on a team. She stepped forward and said, "I would like Hinata Hyuga. The rest of my team I would prefer a tracker team." The Hokage nodded, then a small smile graced his face. "Any objections?" Kurenai was a little worried when the Hokage smiled. That usually meant he planned something, and with him being the guiding force for the strongest ninja village in the land, that was something to be wary about. No one spoke up and the Hokage smiled a bit wider. Granted, he said with some enthusiasm. He chuckled pervertedly in his head. Oh, did he have the best prank? The rest of the pickings went by fast with no one of particular interest until they were finally done. The Hokage was pleased with all of his Junin except Kakashi. That remark about Naruto reminded him too much of what Naruto had already gone through in life and said, okay, the decisions have been made and the teams are. Time skip. Next morning, Naruto awoke from his peaceful slumbers with Kyuubi and Kamikaze. Morning, Kyuubi. Kamikaze, he thought. The fox replied fastest. Kit, and Kamikaze right after, good morning Naruto-sama. He was in a good mood. Today was when he would find out what his team was. But this was a bad omen to Naruto. Whenever he was in a good mood, something always happened to send it down the toilet. Now Naruto was by no means a pessimist, but he believed that very good mornings were really only okay when you had someone to share it with. Somewhere within the city and in Mizu no Kuni 4 women sneezed. Deciding to just enjoy it while it lasted, he started on his usual morning ritual but did not do as much training as normal so as to get that new outfit he had promised himself and to be ready for whatever his team training may entail. After breakfast, Naruto made his way to Chris' shop yet again. He had told Chris pretty much everything about himself. He was his closest confidant and he could count on Chris to help him should he need it. As such, he knew about all his pranks and honestly roared with laughter at what he did a year ago. Walking into the store and greeting Chris, "Ohio Chris ni-san, Ohio o tudo." Chris replied back, "Coming to get your new wardrobe." "Hi," Naruto responded. Chris pulled out a long black box and set it on the counter. "Consider this a present from me to you for graduating. It has repair seals and growth seals, so it should be nigh indestructible." Naruto took the box and opened it. Inside lay a beautiful coat. It was black with some streaks of crimson on it. Upon its back rested a Kyuubi surrounding a sword with wind whipping it up. Seeming almost as if the Kyuubi was protecting the sword while at the same time riding the wind. Naruto was stunned with the intricacy of the needlework and hoped he never broke this. "That is ninja silk made from nin spiders, so only the hottest fires will burn the cloak. Wear it with pride. I have set aside some of the money you paid when you came here and have saved up to make this for you, with you paying half." "Arigato ni-san," Naruto said. Naruto ventured further into the store to pick out compliments to his new coat. Choosing a mesh shirt to go underneath a crimson shirt made with lightweight metal links within the shirt. Black cargo pants with a place for his kunai and shuriken and a hidden pocket for some senbon. He grabbed some sturdy sneakers to house his feet. He always wondered why a ninja would wear sandals when he would be attacking with his feet. Unfortunately, boots were too heavy, but these lightweight sneakers with a steel woven tip made him a bit toe heavy, but it would have to work for now. So wearing his new outfit, he stepped out of the changing booth and donned his new cloak. It reached down to about mid-calf and did not obstruct mobility. All in all, he was very pleased with his new outfit. He paid for his outfit and ordered about 5 more like it and headed off to school. As he walked, he received weird looks, but few were of hatred. They were wondering who would wear the 9 tails on his back, but he was proud of it. "Damn straight you're proud," Kyuubi remarked. Naruto smirked behind his face mask. He had finished the anti-rape seal and got the old man to test it, and he had some punk named Jiraiya to look over the seal. It had been accepted as a revelation, but he had not announced when it would hit stores or even that he was going to sell it. None of the women had been told of it yet to avoid a riot because Naruto refused to sell it yet. He had finished its testing days ago and was finally cleared to get it start selling. He found chakra holding seals within the Shikifuin and modified them to hold chakra so the henge transformation would last up to a month. It may not save all of the women, but it would save a good amount. It worked by storing chakra in it when it was applied and had a one-time usage. Once activated, it would remain active until the kunoichi decided to cut it off. Because of the small amount of chakra a henge takes, the small henge could last a month before dispelling. Once the technique was stopped or dispelled, you had to reapply the seal to have access to it again. As a side note, it was able to be turned off. It activated when a person tried to invade the kunoichis or if the kunoichi activated it. The seal would sense the intrusion and automatically activate should the kunoichi have it turned on. This kept them from being raped while knocked out. It would knock the person back with a small burst of chakra and engage the henge. No side effects have surfaced and it was hailed as genius even by Jiraiya. The caged bird seal was next on his list after that. Naruto liked seals, but too many could become a problem within the world. He would make some for his family home and the like, but that field was too dangerous to tamper with. Naruto arrived at the academy. He made quite the imposing figure. He had grown a few inches in the last year, making him a flat 5 feet with his cloak billowing in the wind, his face mask covering his mouth and cheeks, and the hilt of his sword, the swirl is hidden by that demonic genjutsu, sticking up from his right shoulder. Some of the students avoided him outright and he smirked underneath his face mask as he made his way to the classroom for what was, hopefully, the final time. When he walked in, all of the class froze, stunned at the new appearance. He had never come in so blatantly obvious. Trying to look more like me, Dobi, Sasuke said, trying to bring some of the attention back to him. No, if I were, I would cut my hair to look like a duck's. Naruto responded quickly. Now that he was a genin, he could let loose a little because the council could not touch him. The rest of the class snickered after looking at Sasuke's hair. Sasuke HNED and turned around to continue his brooding, satisfied his fangirls had returned their attention. Naruto sat down next to Shikamaru and Shino. Morning, Shino, Shika. Shino and Shikamaru looked at Naruto and responded, morning, before going back to their usual quiet selves. Naruto looked around and waited for Iruka to get here for the team placements. He hoped he would not get the Uchiha or any of his fangirls. God, they were annoying. He noticed Hinata's blush and really hoped he would not be on her team either. He would break her heart to make sure she stayed alive, but he did not relish the idea of hurting a woman. It is for the best, Naruto-sama. She cannot remain the way she is if she is to survive. Kamikaze remarked. Kill or be killed. Kyuubi simply said. While Naruto had been musing, Iruka had entered and started his speech on what it means to be a ninja and all the responsibilities it entails, and he finally came to the team placements. Quote. So I wish you luck in your new careers. Now, Team 1 will be. Naruto tuned him out and felt sorry for the ones who were going to fail the next test for genins. He was sure the Junins were to test them because the academy test did not make a ninja ready for the rigorous life of ninja. Quote. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Kiba Inuzuka. Ignoring the cries of true love prevails and two head smacks against the wood, Iruka continued. Team 8 will be Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto's head picked up. Shino Aburame. Naruto nodded at his new teammate and comrade, happy so far, and Hinata Hyuga. Thump. Everyone turned to see Hinata passed out on the floor. Naruto groaned and looked at Shino. Shino seemed amused at the turn of events with a hidden sadness at what Naruto was going to have to do. Shino was one of Naruto's only friends, them being the old man, Chris, Shika, and Shino. Naruto was close to Choji, but he was more of an affiliate than a friend. So he knew what Naruto planned for their new teammate. Team 9 is still in circulation, so Team 10 will be Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, and Shikamaru Nara. Your Junin senseis will be here shortly. Good luck once again. With that, Iruka exited. Kurenai was walking to go pick up her team when she thought back to the team placements. Author Yami style flashback no jutsu. The teams will be. They were shocked when they heard Kakashi was not getting who he wanted. It was the first time he had actually requested somebody and he was being turned down. Kurenai was quite happy. The way he talked about Naruto showed he did not care at all. Kakashi spoke up. Why is Kurenai getting him? She did not even request him. The Hokage narrowed his eyes, angry he had been questioned as to his methods after his earlier outburst. Because she will treat him fairly, not merely as a stepping stone for another. What is your ultimate rule, Kakashi? Kakashi bowed his head in shame when he thought about that and said, Hi Hokage-sama. Kurenai spoke up then, I am happy, however, what does Uzumaki-san bring to a tracker team? The Hokage chuckled, I see none of you read the report I sent out. I had hoped one would notice. He has since advanced further than a nin dog. This set the Junin ablaze with jealousy at such high sense that they had to train for years to reach. He will be the perfect addition, and Kiba will balance out Team 7 while giving them what they need, a tracker and close combat expert. Naruto will become your ninjutsu expert, and with Hinata's Jiyuken and Shino's bugs combined with your genjutsu, it is an all-around perfect team setup. After the Hokage's explanation, no one had a comeback for why she should not have him. You are all dismissed. Kurenai, please stay a moment. Kurenai nodded her assent and waited while the others filed out. The Hokage put up a privacy seal and said, Now that no one can hear us, let me hear your opinion of Naruto. Kurenai responded almost immediately. I see no wrong in him, Hokage-sama. His pranks brighten our day, and if he were the fox, why would he do such things? He is simply a misunderstood boy who is yearning for attention and guidance. The Hokage stared at her a full 3 minutes before sighing and saying, I am glad you feel that way. I am aware you are friends with Anbu Neko, correct? Kurenai nodded. Please bring her with you when you test your teams. She will not have any missions for a few days. Naruto is much stronger than he appears. He has a sword that I think Neko might find interesting. That mischievous glint back in his eye. The Hokage said, You are dismissed. Kurenai turned around and walked out, wondering about the enigma that is Naruto. Author Tenchi style. Flashback no Jutsu Kai. She continued on her way with Yugao in regular Junin attire next to her, carrying her sword. After explaining to Yugao the Hokage's suggestion, she immediately agreed, happy to see someone so young interested in swordplay. They walked up to the door with the rest of the Junin sensei and proceeded to enter. Naruto watched as the door swung open and in walked 11 people. His eyes widened as he took in the last 4 though. Hitaki Kakashi, the copy ninja, son of the White Fang, and so-called prodigy or Konoha. Asuma Sarutobi, son of the Old Man, wielder of trench knives and the only other wind user within Konoha, part of the 12 ninja guardians who protect the Fire Lord. But it was the final 2 who had him sweating bullets. Murasaki Haim, who he had found out from Chris was Yugao Azuki, and his own Megami-chan, Kurenai Uehi. He caught like a deer in the crosshairs. Kyuubi was amused by the predicament. He was not expecting to have both of them here as Junin sensei. He watched as they scanned the room and waited with bated breath as their eyes passed over him. He had removed his own genjutsu, but his sword's hilt remained hidden. They did not linger on him, and he let out a sigh of relief, which quickly turned into curses to the old man, for he was sure to have set this up. Team 8, please follow us. Kurenai said and motioned for them to follow her and Yugao. Damn, now I can't use kamikaze. Do you not think it would be okay? Perhaps she has done as you asked and put it behind her. Kamikaze remarked. Naruto responded. Perhaps, but I will still try to refrain from using you if that is okay, Kamikaze. I am not happy, Naruto-sama, but you do it for the right reasons. I will accept this for now, but should you put yourself in danger, I will not hesitate to take control of your arm and pull myself. Consequences be damned. Naruto was a little surprised at Kamikaze but accepted nonetheless. He got up with Shino and Hinata and headed out to their senseis. Once they were outside, Kurenai turned and said, Meet us at Training Ground 8 in about 20 minutes. And both she and Yugao shunshined away. Naruto made a pointed look at Shino. Keep Hinata busy for the 20 minutes, was the silent message Naruto sent, and Shino nodded as Naruto shunshined to the 2 women to inform them of Hinata's crush and how he was going to break it. Kurenai and Yugao appeared in the training grounds area. It was an all-around training area with some rocky places, a forest, a small waterfall, and a meadow. Not 1 minute later, Naruto shunshined in as well with a little burst of air. Both Junin were stunned that he could do such a high-level technique already, but hid their surprise well. He turned to them and smiled, or it appeared he did, and spoke. Unfortunately, we are probably going to get off on the wrong foot. I am about to do something that must be done to allow this team to succeed. Shino is taking care of the preparations, but you must not interfere until I give the signal. The Junin were surprised here was a genin telling them what to do. Kurenai spoke up. What are you going to do? Naruto smiled sadly and said, break a girl's heart. At that moment Hinata walked into the training ground, followed closely by Shino. The Junin were stunned at his declaration and he spoke up saying, well, maybe we should introduce ourselves. That snapped them out of their stupor and they started the introductions. Yes, well, I am Kurenai Uehi. I like genjutsu, Anko-chan, Yugao-chan, and romance novels. I dislike perverts and that orange book that shall remain nameless. My dream is to be the foremost genjutsu master in the world and to see you get to Junin. Kurenai said, I am Yugao Azuki. I like kenjutsu, Anko-chan, Kurenai-chan, and mystery novels. My dislikes are the same as Kurenai. And my dream is to become a kenjutsu master and pass it on to my kids, said Yugao. You will call us Kurenai-sensei and Yugao-sensei. Now Shino, you're up. I am Shino Aburame. I like Naruto, bugs, and learning about different types of bugs. I dislike those who kill bugs for no reason. My dream is to become clan head and help Naruto achieve his. Shino said, I am Hinata Hyuga. I like lavender and, she glanced at Naruto, I dislike perverts and the caged bird seal. My dream is to abolish the caged bird seal and become clan head. Imagine her stuttering, Hinata stuttered out and Kurenai smiled at the shy young girl. Naruto sighed as he caught her glance. I am Naruto Uzumaki. I like foxes, kenjutsu, ninjutsu, and seals. My dislikes are perverts, rapists, and child beaters. My dream for the future is to become the strongest shinobi in the land to protect all my precious peoples. Kurenai blinked and smiled softly at her team. She got a good bunch. Now it was time to test them. But before Kurenai could speak, Naruto beat her to it again. Hinata, if there were another test for genin to become genin besides what was taught in the academy, what would it be based on? Shino. After a few seconds Hinata's eyes widened at her answer and Shino nodded. They said in unison, teamwork. He smart kids Kurenai-sensei. Kurenai was flabbergasted. He deduced there was another part of the test and completed it all without even being given the test. Who is this kid? Definitely not the dead last of the academy. Now Hinata, what would you say would be the best teamwork a team could come up with? Naruto questioned. This put Kurenai on edge. She knew of Hinata's crush and was hoping Naruto would not crush her. Shino put himself in the way and shook his head at Kurenai, a clear indication not to interfere. Anyo. I am not sure, Naruto-kun. Hinata stuttered again. Naruto steeled himself and said, being able to kill one another. Hinata seemed confused until Naruto took a taijutsu stance that had Yugao gasping. Yugao recognized that style even if it wasn't the true style. It was the fourth style. Where did he get information on that it should be locked up in the Hokage vault? Naruto lunged forward as fast as his seals would allow and started to fight Hinata. He went for a right hook. She blocked and spun away to get some distance and took her stance and hesitantly activated her Byakugan. What are you doing, Naruto-kun? Hinata stuttered. I am breaking you of your naive ways, Hinata, and allowing you to fight to your full potential by killing you. With that he put his deadly taijutsu to actual work for the first time. Accurately dodging her Jiyuken strikes because she would not attack any vitals and delivering debilitating strikes on his own. Kurenai and Yugao watched transfixed and horrified. Naruto was actually hurting his teammate. Nothing too hurtful, but she was clearly going to be hurting in the morning. Finally, after a nasty roundhouse kick, Naruto stood looking down on Hinata. You are weak, Hinata. You allow others to walk all over you and will not fight back. This team will not continue with you as you are. You must be willing to attack and kill. A ninja is destined to kill. It is our lot in life. If you are afraid to take a life, then you do not belong within the shinobi ranks. He then leaned down and cupped her chin and pulled her eyes to his. That is what makes you weak and what makes you strong. Your kindness is rarely found within a human. Draw strength from it. Allow yourself to be kind to those around you. Use that kindness that makes you want to protect someone to kill your nice side within battle. Hinata. You must be able to strike me in the heart with a Jiyuken strike, for sparring with me while ignoring my vitals means you will ignore the vitals on a bandit. What happens when that bandit you are fighting turns around and kills me because I trusted you to have my back but you held back, not wanting to kill? Do not relish in killing. Simply do it because you must. Your crush for me is built out of adoration. Adore yourself. Climb to your peak and become the serious kunoichi you are destined to be. Hinata stood with tears in her eyes and said, "Hi Naruto." She would not call him Naruto-kun, not after that. Kurenai was angry that he had been so brutal, but what he said seemed to have worked and Shino lowered his bugs. I am sorry for resorting to such extreme measures, Hinata, but for this to work, I need you to focus. Do not love me. I am incapable of loving you. I will not allow myself to. I have noticed the hatred of my village just as you have, and you know your father would never allow it. Try Kiba, he is a bit of a pervert, but if you make him yours he will be loyal to a fault. Hinata nodded, still crying but with determination shining in her lavender orbs. Satisfied he had accomplished what needed to be done, he walked up to Shino and said, "Arigato." Shino punched him in the jaw. "Don't ever hit your comrades again and I will consider it thanks enough." Shino was not happy he went further than he had planned, but he accepted it. His logical side said it was for the best, but he needed to get that out of his system. "Hi Shino." Naruto was not angry, he knew what Shino was thinking. Kurenai just shook her head. It seems she got the crazy bunch. But they will be great, she was sure of that. Already showing a camaraderie that was rarely seen even within Konoha. Alright, since I have seen Hinata's fight in Naruto's taijutsu. Shino, come spar with me. Taijutsu only. I wish to see where you stand. About 40 minutes later. Kurenai was breathing slightly fatigued while Shino was sweating bullets. Stamina was not their strong suit. Enough. Yugao, would you like to test Naruto's blade? Yugao nodded, her eyes shining. Naruto thought, so much for not using you kamikaze. You ready? Hi Naruto-sama. You have only used me to kill some worthless bandits since those genins. This will be a true test of your skills progress. Naruto walked to the edge of one training ground and asked. So what are the rules, Yugao-sensei? Yugao pondered for a moment. Kenjutsu only, no jutsu. Naruto raised his eyebrow at the little limitations and said, very well, let us begin. He got into his stance, his body completely relaxed, and unsheathed his sword with a slight shing sound mirrored by his opponent. His sword point facing towards the ground. He whispered, Kai, and released the level 5 resistance seal down to level 3 so he could survive the coming ordeal. He said, whenever you are ready, sensei. Yugao took in his stance. It seemed to be full of holes in defense. Obviously an amateur swordsman. She watched him careful. He remained still, only really moving when the wind would blow across the training ground. They stood there for 2 minutes before Yugao moved, dashing across the meadow at low chunin speeds. Naruto saw her coming a mile away. He had already moved his weapon into the block before she swung. She came from high and stroked down to come across his chest in an arcing pattern. Their blades collided with a resounding clang, 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 clang. Every attack she tried on him. Every skill was blocked. She decided to step it up. Moving to low Junin speeds, he seemed to be slowing down and managed to block most of the cuts, but he would always avoid the hits. A downward slash blocked. A thrust parried and thrown away. A horizontal slash back stepped and stepped up into her guard. He was showing skills of a kenjutsu master. Indeed, according to Kamikaze, Naruto has almost completed his own style of wind style. Once mastered, it would be unable to be copied for the erratic movements required, and should someone try to copy without the proper training, it would result in horrible muscle pains and possible tearing. Finally, after 20 minutes of straight kenjutsu, Yugao stepped back. She was breathing slightly heavy but could see Naruto was only slightly winded, that legendary stamina of his holding out. She admired the blade and could say it seemed familiar. All of a sudden Naruto's eyes turned red and he looked into the trees to his right. Yugao-sensei. Protect Hinata. Shino get with Kurenai-sensei. As soon as he shouted, two nins came out of the forest. One wearing a scratched headband from Iwa looking to be a Junin by his attire. The other was wearing a scratched headband from Kumo looking to be a Chunin. Well well well, look who we have here. The Genjutsu mistress of Konoha Kurenai Uehi. Swords mistress Yugao Azuki. And some frightened genin. The Iwa nin scowled. You killed my brother, you bitch of a mistress. Looking fiercely at Kurenai. I will bring the Byakugan back to my village and I will be hailed as a hero. Perhaps I will be allowed to father the first of the new Byakugan. He finished with a perverted leer at Hinata, who shrunk back. How the hell did these guys get within the city walls? Naruto thought was he gauged his opponents. Naruto spoke up and said, well, you have about 5 minutes before the Anbu get here, so let's get started. Nay. I will take a Kumo nin. Yugao-sensei stay next to Hinata till this is finished. Shino assist Kurenai in her battle. They all nodded and went to their respective jobs as they faced off. The Chunin sneered. You think you can take me, little boy? I was fighting battles before you were sucking bottles. Naruto shook his head. Enough banter, let's get this started. Fuden. Datapa, great breakthrough. Blowing out of his mouth, he sent a large wind at the Chunin, who just stuck to the ground and retaliated. Raiden. Kaminari Saji, lightning surge. The lightning spread across the ground going after Naruto. Naruto jumped back and avoided the attack. He sent another jutsu at him. Fuden. Renkuden, spiraling fist. The ball of compressed air went flying at the enemy and Naruto came charging right after it with his sword drawn. The enemy nin jumped and dodged the jutsu but came down to Naruto, attempting to slash him on his downward arc. He quickly put his hand guard up and blocked the strike, starting a fierce close combat fight. Naruto sent another slash his way. The enemy nin, using lightning manipulation, put some electricity in his hands and went to grab the blade, expecting his chakra-enhanced gloves to catch it. He screamed a few seconds later when he noticed how the blade dispelled his lightning and cut right through his hand. Nice work, Kamikaze. You have advanced well to defeat a Chunin at this point, Naruto-sama. Once he realized the nin was still screaming, he promptly took advantage of the situation and beheaded him. Confident he has dispatched his enemy, he turned around to look at the other fight going on. He cursed in his head and disappeared with a kai and a burst of speed. A few moments earlier, the fight had been going well, with Kurenai stopping the Junin with her genjutsu and Shino sucking him dry of chakra with his bugs, when it all changed. They heard a scream from the other ninja and their opponent seemed to sense the genjutsu at the same time. He broke the genjutsu and after spewing a fire dragon jutsu on all the surrounding bugs, proceeded to make hand signs. Kurenai tried to catch him in another genjutsu, but he finished his jutsu right as she did and it did not catch in time. So now Kurenai and Shino were staring down a fast-moving spike of earth with fire rolling around it, making it seem like a flaming bullet. Kurenai knew she did not have the speed to dodge or pull off a kawarimi and stood there looking in abject horror at how she was going to die on her first day as a sensei. I wonder what that swordsman is doing now. That's when someone showed up in the path of the bullet holding a sword high. Naruto cursed as he had wanted to keep this a secret. His crimson aura flowing around him, unknowingly dispelling the demonic genjutsu. He swung his sword down like he did so many years ago and spoke the name of the attack, Benika's. It sent the wave cutting through the bullet and saving his sensei and friend, and because of the genjutsu cast by Kurenai, slicing the opposing Junin's arm and leg off. He screamed and fell down to his knee. Naruto ignored the 3 gasps behind him, 2 from recognition, 1 from the brutality, and walking over to the enemy, beheaded him as he did his comrade. Sighing once more. Looks like the fox is out of the bag, Kit. Though I have to say you have quite the devious mind to account for every interaction but a fight here. Kyuubi said before laying down for a fox nap. He pulled down his face mask. No reason trying to deny it now. Damn you, old man, I am sure you set this up. He turned around to face the music. Kurenai couldn't believe it. Here was the swordsman who had saved her so many years ago. Living right under her nose. It was the pariah of the village. Then another thought occurred to her. The Hokage lied to her. He knew he was here and told her otherwise. Oh, she was pissed. Yugao was transfixed on the blade. It had appeared in her dreams a few nights in the past year. She would always wonder who it was who could prank Anbu with a sword. She had suspected Naruto, but he never had a sword with him, so she could never verify it. That swirl and that attack, such grace and definition. Oh, she had to know more. Hinata and Shino were just in awe of the attack and seeing their teammate kill two higher-ranking ninja. Hinata was wondering if she could get as powerful. Shino was wondering if he had always been this powerful and if this was the reason for his bug's skittishness. Naruto turned around and Kurenai and Yugao gasped yet again at the red eyes shown by their young charge. Hello again, Megami-chan, Murasaki Harem, been a while, has it not? Naruto spoke, having a deeper voice than normal with his battle mode activated. Whenever Naruto had activated this state before, he would gain speed and strength as well as better eyesight. After contacting Kyuubi, he asked if it was its chakra he was tapping into, but Kyuubi said it wasn't, so he just chalked it up to a bloodline or something since he could not accurately account for another power source. Shino and Hinata were a little confused as to the names until they saw the looks of shock on their sensei's face. Naruto, I believe an explanation is in order. Shino stated. Naruto sighed and said, Hi, follow me, we will go to the Hokage's office. What I have to say should not be heard by the wrong ears. All of them just nodded as Naruto deactivated his battle mode and his features returned to normal. He sheathed Kamikaze and they all shunshined to the Hokage's office. Hokage's office. Naruto and his team shunshined into the office and Naruto glared at the Hokage. I know you had something to do with this, you old geezer. Damn it, I had a reason for that request. The Hokage blinked and then took in the state of the team and said, What happened? Yes, I put you with Yugao and Kurenai, but nothing else should have happened. After explaining the stuff on the team training ground and handing in the two heads which gained them AC rank and A rank missing nin bounty. The Hokage shook his head. I had hoped you would have built a little bit of your relationship before having to discard with your pretenses, though I think this will be good for you. Kurenai spoke up before anyone else though and asked, Why did you lie to me about him, Hokage-sama? Me too, Yugao pitched in. The Hokage turned his eyes to Naruto with a questioning glance. Naruto sighed and scratched his head. Because I told him to. Kurenai turned a hurtful gaze on him and Yugao was just shocked he wouldn't want recognition for what he had done. I suppose I should start at the beginning. Let's get some food and get comfortable. This is going to be a long story. Are you going to tell them everything, Naruto-sama? Kamikaze spoke up. Hi, if it is okay with you. I must trust these people and they have proven trustworthy so far. Just be careful mentioning you can speak with me. These people, even the Hokage, are fearful of what they don't understand. Kyuubi informed. I will leave out talking to you and just say I met you and you threw me out the mindscape. Keeps with your demon persona, right? He said with a little bit of sarcasm and returned his attention to the people sitting around the Hokage's office with some food on the table. Sighing one last time, he began his tale. Gigi put up a silencing barrier. Please, after pausing for the glow of the barrier. It all started on my 7th birthday. Then I passed the exam and am now assigned to your team. Should you not wish to work with me anymore, I will understand. The Hokage waited in bated silence to see what his teammates would do. Shino spoke up rather fast and said, So you are hated for what you carry as well. It makes no difference what you hold. You have saved the village every day you draw breath. You will always be my first and best friend. Having said that, he bumped fists with Naruto and he waited patiently for Hinata's decision. Hinata finally spoke up after about 2 minutes of silence. Naruto, that is a lot to take in. Though it is amazing what happened to you when you were younger. I would be proud to call such a brave person as you as my friend, surprising even herself by not stuttering. Naruto laughed, happy for his first few friends' acceptance, and said, Well, Hinata, it seems my lesson is working rather fast. He turned to the two elder women within the room and his eyes saddened for having hurt them. They had been looking for him but he was trying to save them pain. Gomen Megami-chan Murasaki Harem. I had tried to hide from you in an attempt to keep you from pain but it seems all I did was compound on it. Yugao spoke up. Damn right you little blonde swordsman. Well we will have to have an all-out kenjutsu battle to the end of time to figure out whether I should forgive you. She turned away from him with a small smile on her face. Kurenai was still trying to digest everything he had said. Well I guess I could forgive you but can we talk after this? Naruto nodded and said that he would take her to his apartment later. The Hokage then spoke up. So Naruto you did not think it prudent to tell me you had a sentient sword Naruto smiled sheepishly. That you had also taken the Book of Seals written by the Yondaime. That you had made contact with the Kyuubi. Naruto flinched at each accusation but turned to his Hokage and said, I was not a ninja at the time and I was not required to inform you. I needed an edge should the civilian council find a way to go around Ujiji. I am sorry. He hung his head. The Hokage sighed. All of that is true and stealing the Book of Seals is a serious offense. However, I think we can overlook it in light of recent events. Good job Naruto in protecting your team from those missing nins. I would like to see your taijutsu and if I can I will get you the actual hummingbird style since you are obviously the only person within the village who can use it. Naruto's eyes lit up and he said, Hi Ji-san. Naruto paused remembering something, so Ji-san my seal is ready to be sold correct? Hi Naruto. Good Kurenai-sensei. Yugao-sensei. Hinata come here a moment. Naruto reached into his pouch and took out 15 anti-rape seals. Kurenai-sensei after hearing your account of how you were almost raped 3 times in a single day and looking over the seals of the Yondaime, I decided to make what I call an anti-rape seal. I had made my sexy jutsu off of it but no one knows the true purpose of that jutsu. It is an actual transformation. All of the women were hanging off his words at this point. This seal I have created, tested, and perfected will be sold in Konoha soon but I want you 3 to have 5 each. He handed them to them and after explaining how they worked Kurenai and Yugao immediately slapped theirs on their necks under their hair. I ask you keep this a secret so people do not come banging on my door I just finished this recently and I will get it in stores as fast as possible. They all nodded amazed at such a thing. I believe that is it for today and judging by the sun it has been a long day. We should all head home. Be at the training ground tomorrow at 8 a.m. You all passed. Kurenai said. All of them nodded and the Hokage disengaged the privacy seals. Yugao gave Naruto a kiss on the cheek for the anti-rape seal and headed off home with a spring in her step. Kurenai chuckled at Naruto's stunned face. Shino and Hinata headed off to the clan district while Naruto walked to the ninja district. Naruto led Kurenai to his apartment and they entered. Naruto asked, would you like something to drink? Kurenai nodded to his offer and took a seat on the sofa. She liked how his living room was set with a few pictures here and there. Could use a woman's touch but it was homey enough. Naruto set the drinks down and wondered what it was she wanted to talk about. So, was that everything from when you saved me to now? Kurenai asked. Hi though I might have changed my words around from in front of Hinata. Naruto answered. Oh really? How so? Kurenai teased. I believe the exact words I used were, a beautiful woman such as Kurenai does not need to have such hate throw on her. Kurenai blushed at his compassion even from such a young age. You know I wasn't searching to thank you. Not many people would do what you did. Many would have killed the others just to take me for themselves, or would have left me there without risking their own necks. Naruto nodded and responded, what did Ji-san tell you I said when I saved you? Kurenai thought for a moment before it dawned on her, that rapists were the worst beings aside from child beaters. Naruto nodded again. Kurenai thought to herself a little bit, he is so young yet he acts so mature what must he have gone through at the villagers' hands? He is so compassionate it rolls off him in waves even with the fox's presence he is not tainted. Naruto spoke up, I act mature for my age yes. I noticed you pondering that. Let me say that my childhood was one that necessitated me be very careful. As such, I have read many things and learned as much as I can to survive. Some things I know nothing of compared to others. I only hope what I know is enough to keep me afloat. Kurenai was struck by his words yet again and decided to call it a night before her mind took her to a place she was pretty sure it would lead to eventually anyways. So she bid Naruto good night and stood up to leave. As she was leaving, she leaned in and gave him a kiss on the cheek opposite Yugao. Thank you, my little blonde swordsman. Naruto stood there stunned for a second before replying, good night, Megami-chan. Naruto closed his door when Kurenai was out of sight and they both went to bed thinking of each other and what the future might hold. It had been almost 2 months since the formation of Team 8 and the revealing of Naruto's secrets to his teammates. They had been doing more D ranks than the other teams because they were already perfectly situated into their roles. They even took the D ranks as a training exercise and as a result finished them much faster than should be possible. Naruto would do extra D ranks so they would have them on the record. They would only take the hardest ones and leave stuff like painting fences to the KB's Kage Bunshin. He would give the extra money to his teammates since his anti-rape seal had literally been sold out since it hit the shelves. His identity behind the seal had been a closely guarded secret. Only the Sandame and his team knew it was Naruto, Yugao also, but he considered Yugao part of his team. She would always come by when she had time. None of the females around Naruto paid for the seals since he gave them another batch when he finished them. He was planning on buying himself a plot of land and building a house when he got the money he wanted. There was tension building within the team though. Shino and Hinata were the best comrades Naruto could ask for. He worked on a seal for Shino's stamina and Hinata's chakra capacity. He managed to finish them easily and put them on his teammates. Shino could now last in a fight against Hinata and Hinata's chakra capacity shot up from Genin to almost low Junin. The tension, however, was between Naruto and Kurenai. Especially when Yugao would visit. Shino observed this and saw that Naruto knew about it, but he assumed Naruto had a plan because Naruto did not seem clueless as to what to do. He would somehow be able to break the tension until the next meeting. Shino knew, however, there was going to be a breaking point and it was fast approaching. Hinata was too focused on regaining her skills from being too nice and could feel the tension just did not pinpoint the course. Hinata had reformed rather quickly after Naruto's killing of her. She started showing more confidence within the spars and managed to land a few hits on Naruto, surprising Naruto himself. She beat Hanabi, her younger sister, in a clan spar and managed to fight longer against Neji, the branch house prodigy, surprising the clan elders and bringing her father's notice to her. Her father had been so hard on her hoping to push her, but it resulted in the opposite effect until Naruto broke her. She had not seen Kiba yet but resolved to herself to at least give the boy a chance. He had been chasing her for years and he deserved it. Fox in position. Angel in position. Kikai in position. Team 8 commence capture. Naruto burst out of the foliage sending a very light gust through the clearing, leading the target to the left of the clearing until a wall of Kikaichu bugs sprung up. The target turned around and looked at its attackers. Hinata and Shino appeared near Naruto. The target looked at them then jumped at Naruto. Naruto caught Tora easily and the cat started cuddling up to him purring. Capture confirmed. Ribbon states it is Tora. Naruto said through his radio. This was the 12th time in the last week they had caught Tora. She seemed to like Naruto, so they always took it when they could. Good work everyone, let's head back to the tower. Kurenai replied over the radio. The team walked through Konoha with smiles on their faces. They were content with their usual routine. They would meet early in the morning and train. As soon as the Hokage's tower would open they would go grab their missions for the day. Do the missions till lunch and then finish up the missions. Teamwork exercises and finish the day off with some good old spars. Each of them could do the water walking exercise and Naruto was working on Senbon balancing while incorporating Kunai balancing into his other known exercises to his KBs. At this point Naruto had about Chunin level chakra control. He was shooting for Junin level, for him, in which case he would be able to outlast Jiraiya in his Sage mode in pure terms of chakra. This was the only downside to his massive chakra. It was so damn hard to control. Naruto's smile, upon seeing the glares of the populace, slowly lost its way until he schooled his expression into neutrality. They still could not track his home down, but the glares did enough damage without him having to find his house. Kurenai frowned seeing Naruto's mask and started glaring at the villagers. How dare they glare at him? He is putting his life on the line as a shinobi. Not to even mention holding back Kyuubi. She was planning out all these evil genjutsus and smirked. Kurenai-sensei. Naruto said. Huh. What is it, Naruto-kun? Naruto's eyebrow raised at the new honorific. She had never really called him that. He dismissed it and said, I had been telling you we are here now and your smirk is scaring everyone. She looked around and did indeed see how most of the men were straying far away from her. She smirked again. He must have picked up some things from Naruto. Naruto unwittingly thought, damn. She has picked some stuff up from me. Let's head inside, sensei. With that they all entered the tower. There was a catch board for the Catch the Tora mission. The cat had been tormenting Genin since the start of the Sandame's rule, and the leader board had been put up after the Sannin managed to catch her in 2 hours. To this day only one team had managed to beat that record. The top 10 catches were all under 2 hours. As a matter of fact, some of them was under 10 minutes. Naruto had set up places to meet Tora so he could pet her when she was out. As such, he had a little bit of a schedule he could follow to catch her. All of the top 10 catches had been made by Naruto's team. They walked into the Hokage's office and Naruto immediately relinquished hold of Tora to the fire daimyo's wife. She is going to kill that cat. Naruto thought. The Hokage sighed and said, good work teammate, now for the next mission. A light bulb seemed to light up above Naruto's head. Kurenai noticed the light in Naruto's eyes, tried to stop him. No, Naru. Excuse me, miss. Naruto shouted. You're hurting her. The fire daimyo's wife turned to find Naruto pointing at Tora. She raised an eyebrow and said, I think I know how to handle my pets. Naruto scowled and said, oh yeah. Put Tora down and let's see who she goes to. If she comes to me, you let me show you how she likes to be petted. If you win, I will catch your cat for free for the rest of the month. The fire daimyo's wife smirked. Okay. Kurenai-sensei, could you please take Tora and put her in the middle of the room? Kurenai and the Hokage sighed. Hi. Kurenai placed Tora in the middle of the room and the fire daimyo's wife immediately said, Tora, come here and there is some fish in it for you. Tora looked her owner and took a step. Naruto spoke up. Tora-chan, here girl. Making sounds with his teeth. Tora immediately turned around and leapt into the Genin's arms. The fire daimyo was stunned. Like this, ma'am. Naruto showed the fire daimyo's wife. Gently petting Tora's head and scratching her ears, making her purr. Now you try. The fire daimyo almost crushed Tora when Naruto held her arm. Softly. He led the fire daimyo's wife's hand gently down Tora's spine and Tora started purring. Amazing. The entire room minus Naruto said. Naruto smirked and said, if you treat Tora like that, I doubt she will run again. Thank you, mister. Naruto chuckled. I am Uzumaki Naruto, ma'am. Please treat Tora nicely. As much as I love petting her, she needs a good home. The fire daimyo's wife nodded and made a note to tell the fire lord about this Genin. The Hokage chuckled seeing Naruto's legendary politician skills at work. He would be a force to rival in a few years. If that is all, ma'am, I believe Team 8 has earned the rest of the day off. Dismissed. The Hokage said. Everyone filed out of the office. Outside, so should we do teamwork exercises or? Naruto started. I have a clan mission that is starting and I will be gone for a few days. Shino said while he walked to his compound. Anyo, father wants to train me in some advanced moves, so I must get going. Gomen na Naruto. With that, Hinata walked off. Just like that, the tension was in the air again. Well, Kurenai-sensei, seems we are being left to fend for ourselves. What would you like to do? Kurenai thought about it for a while. I think I am going to go meet Anko for lunch then relax the rest of the day. What about you, Naruto-kun? Naruto again quirked an eyebrow at the honorific. Nato responded while thinking, it's now or never. I was considering asking you to join me for dinner. Kurenai was taken aback. Really, now what would the occasion be for? Kurenai's mind immediately went to the place she tried so hard over the past 2 months to avoid, a date. She immediately slapped herself in her head, but the words were already out. If you don't mind going on a date with someone as young as me, I most certainly would welcome you as my date. Naruto said. Naruto hated to throw such a point into the conversation, but it must be clear before they start anything that could lead to disaster areas for Naruto's mind. If he allows himself to connect to someone but they would never allow it past a certain point. Well, Naruto has so little friends it becomes devastating to lose even one. Kurenai blinked and replied almost without thinking, a man's age has nothing to do with his maturity, Naruto-kun. You are much more mature than most of the men in this village. Naruto took the compliment and said, then shall I pick you up at 7 o'clock? Kurenai nodded her head and took her leave, heading for Anko, eager to share her news with Naruto. He headed home thinking to Kyuubi and Kamikaze, that was unexpected. But welcome. Kamikaze chimed in. All I know is kid, you need some clothes for tonight. This Anbu stuff isn't cutting it. Kyuubi informed her container. Naruto nodded his assent to the demon. He had arrived at his house and decided to tidy up his small apartment. He set about to work and let his mind wander as he did the menial chores that allowed him to work his finger muscles. Over the past month he could feel the tension between himself and Kurenai. It was part of the reason he did not want his identity revealed, but he could not say he was not enjoying the attention. He had been attracted to the woman even when he was young. He was by no means a pervert, but for some reason he had noticed her even at his young age and pegged her as someone he wanted to know more about. He had thought about her over the years and kept an eye on her, helping her out with little notes for genjutsu ideas, though she didn't know that. He knew that now that she knew about him. He was falling for her. Thought there were 2 things that held him back. One was the age difference. He was not sure she would be able to hold a relationship with someone 7 years younger than her. Another was Yugao. He knew he held feelings for the purple-haired Anbu as well. This confused him as he was sure that he should only be able to love one of them. Yugao had inadvertently led to the creation of his inner pervert a year ago when he had been flashed. She still did not know this, but he had dreams of her and Kurenai doing things with him he knew 13-year-olds shouldn't be keen on doing. Yes, there were 13-year-olds who did that, but they were perverts, right? And wanting more than one girl did that not make him perverse? He could not ask the girls these questions and he hesitated to ask Kurisu. He felt it would not be proper to discuss this with others, therefore kept it squashed down where only Kamikaze was able to see it occasionally when it would flash across his mind in training. Kamikaze knew that it was natural but did not want to encourage him. He decided to let his user figure it out on his own and he would help where he could. Trying to explain it to someone like Naruto might only exacerbate it. Naruto, though, for the life of him he could not seem to figure out why he could not have both of them. It was supposed to feel wrong to love multiple women. It showed in society how men were only allowed one woman to become their wife. Naruto was sure that because of this you were only supposed to love one woman. He had more interaction with Kurenai, so he decided to go on a date with her since she brought it up. But he was feeling a little guilty at not taking Yugao out as well. Still musing over why he could not have multiple loves. He missed the thoughtful expression and slight muttering of the Kyuubi as Naruto continued his cleaning. With Kurenai, I can't believe I actually asked him that. She was still in a bit of shock over the fact she just asked out a boy who was 7 years her junior. She could not deny her feelings about the boy. Ever since he had been shown as the swordsman who saved her all those years ago, and that he remained so pure even now was utterly astonishing. His childhood had been horrible. He had not explained much before he got his sword, but just the parts that he did made Kurenai cringe. He asked so mature she felt as if she was talking to her father again. She was walking to the dango shop she was sure Anko was going to be at and continued her musings. He was kind, courageous, cute, powerful, and definitely not a pervert because she had yet to see him trying to sneak a peek at her or Hinata during practice. Basically everything she wanted in a man was packed into that little man 7 years her junior. The things he could do with seals were amazing. He managed to bring her stamina up so high that she could actually outlast Kakashi. That had always been her weakest point and now she could stand long fights. When she first realized she was falling for the blonde after giving him that little kiss on the night she had been assigned him as a genin, she tried to stop her mind from going there, but as she spent time around him and noticed how his aura radiated peace and security, she began to grow more and more attracted to him. She noticed how Yugao was hanging around him too. That did not sit well with her for some reason. Now she stopped denying herself and actually took that step to see what would happen if she went further. She felt a little sorry for Yugao. She had been as deprived of love as she had because of all the perverts honing in on her as well, and decided that she would help Yugao find a guy if things worked out with Naruto tonight. With Yugao, she could not get that little man out of her head. Damn it, she growled in her head. Why is it all the guys her age have to be perverts? There was that Hayate guy, but ever since she met Naruto he was all she could think about. His aura of peace yet deadliness was only exuded by the strongest of shinobi. He could bring you at ease with his very presence. The fact he had one kick sword that he could talk to did not have any indication as to why she had initially taken an interest in him. She could feel the power rolling off him when she saw him that night in the Anbu headquarters. She could feel the skill he held hidden when he sunshined onto the training ground the day she had helped Kurenai. She tried as hard as she could to keep herself from him, but it only seemed to push her along faster. She knew she fell for the blonde. When she kissed him on the cheek she had known, but she tried to deny it. Tried as hard as she could to say someone 8 years younger could never want to be with someone like her, but her mind would not accept it. So she spent some time away from him that first week doing Anbu missions, but as soon as she got back she felt compelled to seek him out. So she had, and as soon as she walked into his presence she was at peace. More calm than she had ever felt before. His aura was just so damn comforting. Like a blanket that just dulled your senses. She was a little annoyed that Kurenai got to spend so much time with him. She almost wished she were his sensei just to spend some time with him. She had finally worked up the courage to make it seem like a casual date. The next time she saw him she was gonna ask him out. If things worked out with Naruto she was going to have to help Kurenai in finding another decent guy. She felt a little bad taking Kurenai's swordsman away, but he was too much of a catch for anyone to let go. Besides, with his life the sooner he gets some love and the more he gets the better. Dango shop. Anko was eating her dango peacefully when Yugao walked up and joined her. Wonder what's got her in such a good mood. Shrugging it off as she didn't care and continued to eat her blessed dango. A few minutes later Kurenai walked up in a similarly good mood. Wow, they are both in a good mood. Something must have happened. Deciding to get the news. She was a professional interrogator. So what happened that got you girls in such high spirits? Yugao and Kurenai both shared wistful sighs as if they were little girls thinking of a fond crush, and Anko smirked. Oh, this is gonna be good, must be about that blonde Gaki. Kurenai and Yugao had informed Anko of all that had happened with Naruto. They felt that since she had been helping them out the most with their search that they owed her that much. She had almost blew a gasket at how horrible the villagers had been, but calmed down when Yugao and Kurenai told her that no one was to know so the council could not try to hurt Naruto. Anko had yet to meet the boy, but she swore if he hurt either of her friends some heads were going to roll. Yugao and Kurenai looked at each other before turning away with guilty expressions. Yep. Definitely about the blonde Gaki. Okay, spill. The only reason for you two to act that this is that little blonde-headed man that somehow lives in your apartment complex. Yugao and Kurenai shared a look and Kurenai nodded to show Yugao should go first. Yugao steeled herself and started her story. She spoke of how she had come to love the blonde little swordsman, how she was initially attracted to his aura, and after spending some time with him she began to see him as something more even though it had only been 2 months. She tried to deny her feelings but it didn't work, and he had opened up quite a bit with her and she was planning on asking him out for a date tonight. So there you have it. Sorry Kurenai, but I really do like the guy, probably even love him. Yugao ended. Anko motioned for Kurenai to speak her piece. Kurenai started her side as well, starting how she just wanted to know more about the blonde swordsman who saved her life not once but twice. She got him to explain his reasoning behind his actions and came to show his compassionate side. She mimicked Yugao in saying his aura calmed her down to the point she almost didn't even have her guard up when she was around him for extended periods. Finally, how she tried to deny herself, but he asked her to dinner as friends and she sort of pushed for something more. Sorry Yugao, but I have the date with him tonight and I am going to take it. He is too good to pass up. Yugao's face fell. I want to try to help you find a good person for you too though. Kurenai said, though she realized Yugao would probably not want her help, not after this. Anko watched all this with a passive face and felt for her purple-haired comrade. There were very few good people within Konoha. Even less decent males around, and with her getting older the pickings were slim, especially because of her Anbu career. It was amazing that they had found this diamond in the rough. Now most thought Anko was a fiend that was just a mask to hide her true nature of being scared of others trying to take advantage of her because of her past. So using this mask she actually had a light bulb go off in her head, and before Yugao could make a hasty exit spoke up, why don't you just share him? Anko spoke her ingenious idea. What? Both Yugao and Kurenai all but shouted. They immediately calmed down when most of the store stared at them. Kurenai spoke up first. Why would we share him? He is not some prize for us to have. Yugao then spoke up. Yeah. Besides, what if he didn't like me? He did ask Kurenai out first. Anko sighed. Getting through to these numbskulls will take some maneuvering. First off, I never said he was a prize. He is a person, but with the shit he has been through, don't you think he deserves a little extra lovin'? Second, he opened up to you, Yugao. According to Kurenai here, he has not told as much as he told to you to anybody but Kurenai. What other proof do you need? He has had a life more horrible than mine, and if I had two beautiful women say they both want to date me, I would most definitely jump at it. Anko sat back and watched her friend's emotions. There were two ways this could end. Both happy and satisfied, literally that demonic stamina would be put to good use with these girls, or one heartbroken and the other happy. She hoped it was the former. Yugao thought about it from Anko's suggestion. Does he love me? She asked herself first. If he didn't, then this was a moot point, but if he loved her and Kurenai, then well, it was a win-win in her case. She was great friends with Kurenai. She could tolerate having to share with her best friend. In fact, it might even prove fun. She had always enjoyed Kurenai's company. She had a sharp wit that showed itself around her friends. They enjoyed many of the same things. She had come to the decision she could share with Kurenai. After all, she had promised to help her find a guy too, and she loved Kurenai almost like a sister. If this provided them both happiness, then it was fine with her. Kurenai was thinking at the same time as Yugao. He likes me. I know that, but does he like Yugao too? She thought about it for a moment and decided that Naruto had to at least like her as a friend, if nothing else, with all he had told her. Then came the ultimate question. Can I share him? It was true what Anko said about his life. He had led an awful life. She was sure she could provide a loving, caring environment to his life. She loved Yugao like a sister. They both wanted the same guy and enjoyed many of the same views. She decided Anko was right. Sharing would bring happiness to all of the people. Naruto most of all, who deserved it. She turned to Yugao. Anko watched as they finished their internal debates and turned to each other. I don't mind if you want to try to share him, Yugao. Kurenai said. Yugao teared up with happiness and hugged her sister in all but blood. Thank you. Well, I think we should get ready for tonight. Kurenai blinked. She had almost forgotten her date tonight. You want to break it to him tonight? Hi. I don't get much time off from Anbu, but the Sandame has said he wants me to spend some more time with your team, so I will be getting a little more vacation time within the city. Kurenai nodded and said, well, we need to go pick out what we want so we can rock him tonight. Anko finally spoke up, I am happy for you two, just don't break him. He is going to be naive in some points, try to be a bit more understanding and don't blow up at him. I heard he had a pink banshee from his last year at the academy and he hated her for it. The trio stood up and after paying for their meal exited the store. They walked for a little bit before getting ready to separate, and right before they did they ran into Naruto, who looked a little tired from what smelled like cleaning supplies. Kurenai and Yugao both waved and said, hello Naruto-kun. Naruto looked up from his trek and smiled, hello Kurenai-chan, Yugao-chan, Anko-chan. Anko looked confused before saying, how do you know about me? Naruto answered, Yugao-kan and Kurenai-chan always talk about you. I hear you have had a rough life. I was on my way to get some formal clothes done since all I have is training clothes. Would you ladies accompany me? I have something I want to show you. Anko immediately threw a kunai at Naruto, but Naruto saw her action and immediately plucked the kunai out the air and turned around, handing it back to her with the handle pointing at her as she shunshined behind him. Do not attack me. I just might kill you, he said while staring at her with red eyes. I believe this is yours, he said, returning to his previous persona. Kurenai and Yugao just stood there chuckling at Anko's gobsmacked expression. They had warned her and had been worried when she threw the kunai, but Naruto's actions were funny. Anko finally grinned before reaching down and plucking the kunai from his hand and whispered in his ear, you hurt my sisters and I will castrate you. Naruto simply nodded and whispered back, I would kill myself before allowing me to harm them. Anko looked in his blue eyes and nodded before turning to Yugao and Kurenai. Let's go then. Naruto led them to Kurisu's shop. He stopped in front of it, but the three kunoichi looked around and said, what are we looking for? Extend your senses a bit. Naruto replied. Each of them looked at the store and muttered, Genjutsu. Naruto nodded and led them inside. He greeted his brother. Ohayo Kurisu ni-san. Ohayo Ototo, Kurisu answered back. All three kunoichi now had their mouths on the floor. Here was the legendary Kurisu and his shop, and Naruto called him ni-san. Kurisu chuckled. Please pick your mouths off the floor. They promptly shut their mouths and Naruto said, Ni-san, this is Megami-chan, Murasaki Harem, and hubby Harem. Pointing to Kurenai, Yugao, and Anko respectively. Earning blushes from the first two and a glare from the last. Using his names for them so Kurisu could get a feel for them. He was particularly interested in Anko. He had heard of her treatment within the village and was interested in who she was. He could not stand for bigots who attack their own defenders. Ohayo everyone. Pleasure to finally meet you. I have heard so much from little Naruto here. Especially you, Miss Anko. Anko growled and putting on her mask said, yeah, what did the little bugger tell ya about how good I am with a snake? Kurisu took her bad temper in stride and said, no, he actually told me you were a beautiful woman who was looked down upon for no fault of your own. Anko's eyes widened before looking at Naruto, who smiled sadly. Anko-chan, I want you to promise me something. Anko asked, what? That you will go on a date with Kurisu tonight. Anko growled, why would I do that? Naruto said, because if you do I will remove your curse seal. Anko immediately tried to catch Naruto, but he had removed his seals before saying it and avoided her. Damn it, Yugaki, get here and remove this seal. You better respect me. Naruto's eyes turned red. Respect is earned, not given. Even the Hokage had to earn my respect. Don't expect me to somehow respect you just because of your position. I had said I would remove the seal for little, but I don't think I should now with your little outburst. It took me years of studying to reach the level 1 and many months to devise a counter seal for your particular seal. Anko was stunned. The Gaki growled at her, but not only that, Yugao and Kurenai were shaking their heads. I will give you one last chance. Kurisu is a fine man, he simply wants to know you better. I only had that stipulation because he will never ask you out and I know you two would work together. Anko considered it for all of 5 seconds and said, "Fine." Naruto nodded his head. "If you don't keep your promise, you will wish you had kept this compared to what I will do to you." He quickly pulled out a piece of paper and walked to Anko. Naruto slapped the paper on Anko's neck and yelled, "Fuian Kai." After a brief moment in which markings spread all over Anko's body, she blinked and everyone saw a wisp of something that looked like a soul's head screaming in agony before disappearing. "Now enjoy your night, that is what I wanted to show you. Be ready to be picked up at 7 Yane." With that, Naruto shoved them out the door and into the street. Naruto sighed and said, "Let's get to work, Kurisu, you need an outfit too." Kurisu sighed, "Since you went through the trouble, I will go." The girls went their separate ways to get ready for their respective dates. That night, 7 o'clock, Naruto rang the doorbell at Kurenai's apartment. Curiously enough, Kurenai, Naruto and Yugao were the only ones within this whole apartment. Kurenai's voice came from within the apartment, "Come in." Naruto walked into the apartment and noticed it was sparsely furnished, but the predominant theme was a red color set almost matching her eyes. She had a sofa and a TV. A few pictures of past times, but otherwise a plain apartment. He heard someone moving from the hallway and stood near the door, so when she came around the corner he could get a decent look at her. Kurenai came around the corner and his jaw dropped. She was wearing a red dress that reached down to her ankles. It stretched from right below her to her ankles in a full wraparound, however, it was backless on the top with the straps holding her to her body. He managed to pick his jaw off the ground just to have it drop again as Yugao walked into the room. She was wearing a golden dress with a back that supported her quite nicely that ended about mid-thigh. He looked between the two women trying to figure out why both of them were here. Yugao and Kurenai were licking their lips and thinking, "Jackpot." Naruto had gotten a kimono made for himself. It was black with crimson crescents on it. It showed very little of his body, but with his hair tidied up and combed, even with its spiky appearance, he was showing every bit of the correct atmosphere. Finally noticing his questioning glance, Kurenai spoke up, "Take a seat, Naruto, we wish to discuss something with you before this date." Naruto looked like a deer caught in the headlights when she spoke, and she was a little pleased they had guessed right. Naruto sat on the sofa while they sat on either side. "Now Naruto," Yugao spoke up, "we already know you like Kurenai, but what about me?" Naruto flushed a little before responding, "You are amazing as well, Murasaki Harem. I really don't think I could live without both of you." Both of them flashed a smile before leaning in. "That's good, Naruto," started Kurenai, "because we decided we would share you." Yugao finished as they each took a kiss on the lips. Naruto was stunned for a few seconds before recovering. "Huh, I thought it was against the law for that." The women sighed. "We don't care about being married, Naruto, although it would be nice, it is not necessary. We are ninja, our lives are short compared to others. Whether we share the same name or not makes no difference to us." Naruto looked contemplative for a moment before responding, "So you both are going to be my girlfriends?" A slight hope in his voice. Both of them chuckled before saying in unison, "Hi." They giggled again. Naruto sighed happily before turning to both of them and saying, "I am glad for you solving my internal dilemma. I have been struggling recently to express that I like both of you. Now I am glad you both like me too." He kissed them both again before standing. "Now I believe you two ladies are in need of a date." He took Kurenai on his right arm and Yugao on his left, and they left Kurenai's apartment. He started walking around the city. He led them to the rich sector of the city. They stopped in front of the Leaf Dragon, the highest place in town. It had sprung up a few years ago and immediately became the place for clan heads and the council to eat at. Naruto walked up to the door and ignored the muttering of the crowd. Naruto-kun, are you sure this is the place?" Yugao asked, not sure about it. Naruto chuckled as they looked at the bouncer and said, "Hi Yugao-chan, now may we pass Sukune?" "Sukune?" The bouncer looked at Naruto for a second and then bowed, letting them through. Yugao and Kurenai were stunned. Naruto walked right up to the maidard and said, "Table for 3 Uzumaki." The maidard looked up and scowled. Get out of here, boy, before I call the police and have you arrested for trespassing. Naruto looked at the man and said, How long have you been working here? The man seemed surprised before responding, This is my 3rd week here. Ah, that would explain it. Please call the manager. The mater did as was told, sure the demon was going to be thrown out. Naruto-kun, let's just go somewhere where there aren't any stuck-up pricks. Kurenai said. Now, Megami-chan, this is all gonna be resolved in a moment. As Naruto spoke, the manager walked up and upon noticing Naruto looked at the mater scowling. He immediately went up to Naruto and bowed, My apologies, Naruto Dono. Please allow me to take you to your seat. Both the girls and the mater were stunned. He just addressed him as if he were a visiting dignitary. Don't worry about it, Takeshi-san, simply make sure your maters are more hospitable next time. With that, they walked off to the table. As he sat after the girls had gotten settled on the balcony scene overlooking the entire city, he spoke up. A few years ago, while I was still training, I began to sneak out and kill bandit camps for some experience. The waiter took their drink orders and entrees and went to place the order. While I was out there, I came across a woman trapped in a cage being held hostage by about 50 bandits. I made my plan, and when most of them slept, I killed them to release the captives. Noticing the woman I saw earlier, she stopped and asked my name. I responded, and a few years later I am walking down the street when that same woman walks up to me. At this point their drinks are there and they are munching on snacks. She introduces herself and says that she wants to thank me for my contribution to her store. She took all the money the bandits had and made a restaurant. Can you guess who this is? Kurenai and Yugao were stunned for the 5th time tonight. He saved the owner of the most popular restaurant in Konoha. So I gained instant access here and a reserved table for whenever I want to come with free food, though I pay because of the investment. My payout stays with the restaurant and more than covers my food costs. They had finished eating and were just enjoying each other's presence, making small talk. They turned to the city view and they each sat on the edge of the roof, Naruto in between the two girls. Naruto had an idea on how to end the day. How would you girls like to see where I go just to think or get away? Yugao and Kurenai both nodded. Naruto shunshined them all to the fourth's head and sat down. Kurenai laid on his right and Yugao on his left. He stroked their hair as they all watched the sunset from the mountaintop. They did not keep track of time until all of a sudden Naruto said, Goddamn villagers. Both Yugao and Kurenai were worried. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? They asked. Naruto quickly said, Girls, do you have anything hidden within your rooms under a strong genjutsu or in a safe? Both shook a negative and Naruto sighed. I regret to inform you that our apartments have burned down. The villagers finally found out where I live and burned it down about 5 minutes ago. I just got a KB memory of it. Both Yugao and Kurenai were in tears thinking they lost everything. The KBs I had in my apartment saved all of your belongings and brought them somewhere safe. That's why I asked if you had anything hidden. I apologize for going through your drawers, but it was necessary. He hung his head ashamed. Until he felt both their lips pressing against his. Thanks, they both said. Naruto coughed and cleared his throat. Yes, well, I had not planned this so soon, but since our complex burned down and I do not think you two have a place to stay. They both shook a negative again. Naruto cleared his throat and blushed a deep crimson. I would be honored to have you come live with me. They both blinked before asking, Naruto, didn't your apartment get burnt down too? Naruto replied, I had been saving up for a plot of land and building supplies for a while now. I just finished my home and I have 2 bedrooms with your names on it if you want. His blush creeping back. Yugao and Kurenai spoke to each other before turning around with a mischievous glint in their eyes and saying, Okay, we would like to take you up on that, Naruto-kun. Naruto gulped before nodding and leading them to his new house. He had made rooms suited to their individual tastes in hopes they would one day live with him. Kind of a lost dream to him, but he was overjoyed to finally share his living space with someone. Especially 2 women he loved. Meanwhile, Kurenai and Yugao were making plans to murder the poor boy. They arrived at the house and Kurenai and Yugao gasped. It was a large size, easily big enough to fit a nice family of 12 to 15. Naruto led them on a house tour. The living room was spacious with the same type of sofa of Naruto's apartment. A big screen TV. A small fridge for snacks and drinks. The kitchen was state-of-the-art and had every gadget a person could ever want. There were about 10 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. The master bedroom and bath. A hot spring, a dojo, and a library which held the base for the matrix of seals that protected his house. He added their signatures so they could enter the house. They were surprised when he showed the 4 custom rooms. 2 of which were theirs. One of them was pure yellow. When they asked him why yellow, he said, "I am not sure. It seems I was just pushed to make it that way." Another was adorned with a small pond and a mist machine. They asked, but he said he was just compelled to make it that way. Naruto then showed their rooms. Yugao was first. Hers was a pure gold color that matched her eyes. Stands for her sword and a desk with scrolls of kenjutsu. It had a queen-sized bed with golden bedcovers. Naruto led Kurenai to her room. It was red-colored like her eyes, the bedcovers copying that color scheme. Scrolls on genjutsu theory and some small plants for her to take care of. Both hugged him and took off to explore and unpack, having handed them their scrolls with their items sealed inside. He wandered off to his master bedroom. He was sad the complex burned down but happy he got the girls. He decided to take a shower and hit the bed. It had been a long day. Once he was finished with his shower, just wearing his boxers, he stepped out of his bathroom to look at his king-sized bed. He saw a sight most men would dream of. Kurenai in a red teddy, barely holding her in and leaving nothing to the imagination, with a red pair of panties. Yugao wearing the same, only golden. He wondered where they had gotten them for a second, then decided he didn't care. They both giggled at his expression and said, "You wouldn't want us to be lonely in this big empty house, would you, Naruto-kun?" Kurenai said suggestively, drawing out his name. "You wouldn't want us all cold at night because of you, Naruto-kun?" Yugao said, following the pattern. Naruto sighed. "Megami-chan, Murasaki Harem, would you do this poor soul a favor and sleep with me tonight?" They replied without hesitation. They threw him onto the bed. Kurenai taking her traditional right hand place, snuggling up with him and pressing her body flush against him as Yugao mimicked her on the left. They both murmured, "Night, Naruto-kun." Naruto sighed, content to go to sleep in the embrace of someone who loves him for the first time in his life. "Good night, my little Megami, my little Harem." With that, Naruto drifted to his most peaceful sleep of his life. Naruto woke groggily as his internal clock rang at 4 o'clock that morning. He wriggled his hands and feet. Feeling a weight on his body, he assumed it was his seals. Strange, they shouldn't feel this heavy. Naruto thought to himself as he tried to bring his hand up to form the seal to release a level of his resistance seal. He could hear grumbling in his head. Shaking off the grumbling as Kyuubi, he again tried to move his hand. Only for last night to hit him with full force. Oh, that's what that is. Naruto realized. Quickly, making some kage bunshin to make breakfast. He looked down and smiled. On each side of Naruto lay a woman. The one on the right had hair as black as night. A body many women and kunoichi would kill for. His own little slice of heaven on earth, Kurenai Uehi. To his left, hair as royal as the purple it was. His own little kingdom of paradise, Yugao Azuki. Both had admitted only yesterday they held feelings for the little blonde currently snuggled in between both of their expansive chests. Upon finding their apartments burnt down, Naruto had invited them to join him in his lonely house. Imagine his joy when not one, but both accepted without hesitation, and so on their first night here, they had slept in the same bed together. Now, Naruto believes the only way a good day can start and stay that way was if you woke up next to the person you loved. Currently, he was deciding this was the best day of his short 13-year-old life. Nothing could bring him down today. He felt the two moving and blushed as their legs moved in unison up his legs, resting in a very special place that all males have trouble with in the morning. He managed to stifle his groan as they brushed him. He hoped with all his heart that Kami would save him from his first good morning being embarrassing. He was disappointed. "Oh Naruto-kun," Kurenai said sweetly, "what is that stake I feel poking at my thigh?" "Yes Naruto-kun," Yugao chimed in, "I wonder what that could possibly be." Naruto started to sweat bullets and stammered out, I'm sorry, please don't hit me for being a pervert." He covered his head and waited for the rain of blows he would always get from girls who thought he was doing something perverted, especially Sakura. Yugao and Kurenai blinked, the playful atmosphere destroyed by Naruto's declaration. Kurenai spoke up softly so as not to upset him further. "Naruto-kun, that is a normal problem men have when they wake up. There is nothing perverted with that." "Who told you that? And why would you expect us to hit you?" Yugao asked. Naruto peeked through his protective arms and replied, "Whenever Sakura would think I was doing something perverted, I would be hit by her. She would always hit my head. I wouldn't dodge it thinking that I deserved it because I couldn't tell what I did wrong, but she was always so enraged that I must have." Faulty logic here, trying to show a little bit of immaturity and naivete because of his upbringing. "It seems a little OOC for him, but trust me, this will work out. I have a few surprises." Kurenai and Yugao frowned. Neither liked that this Sakura would hit Naruto. Women in general don't like perverts, but to hit a kid just because you think he did something perverted was crossing the line. Yugao spoke up. "Naruto morning wood is a natural reaction. I am sure you read the anatomy for your anti-rape seals, didn't you come across this?" Naruto thought for a moment before responding. "I had heard of it, but this was the first time I have had it. I just had a natural reaction to Sakura's hitting. Sorry Harem, Megami." Kurenai and Yugao smiled but were musing in their heads. "Just so you know Naruto-kun, women do not like perverts, that is true. However, women who have men they like. To see them get like this," Kurenai said and rubbed him again, "only makes the women feel, I suppose I should say proud, at least it does to me, and I believe Yugao." Yugao nodded her assent. "Do not make this a habit and do not show anyone this, but if it does happen while you are admiring your girlfriends, it is okay to feel aroused." Kurenai tried to explain to her new boyfriend. She did not want him to shy away from them because of some conditioning this Sakura seemed to be doing. Naruto nodded his head and said, "So I should only feel like this around my girlfriends." Kyuubi spoke up from the seal. "No kid, that is a natural reaction to any female body you might find attractive. You will have that reaction to many women, but should it be a woman not interested in you, then they will likely call you a pervert. What Kurenai is explaining is that only those whom you are involved with would take it as a compliment. Others would see it as you simply cannot control yourself." Kurenai and Yugao noticed his far-off look and waited for a bit, knowing he was either talking to Kamikaze or Kyuubi. Yugao and Kurenai both took a minute to concentrate on the feel of Naruto's manhood that was poking them. They both thought the same thing, big. He was not huge, but he was big for his age and he still had some time to grow. No, Naruto is not going to be some huge monster of a third leg. That would hurt almost anyone he tried to have with, but he will be a decent size even if he is young when I write 8. They both blushed and turned away from each other, a little embarrassed at the thoughts running through their heads. Naruto was brought out of his musings by a slight honey scent that permeated the area. He sniffed the area slightly, trying to get a bead on it. He sniffed again and heard Kyuubi growl. This put Naruto on edge. Kyuubi hadn't growled since they first met. He sniffed again and managed to locate the honey scent from Kurenai and Yugao. He opened his mouth to speak, but something stopped him. He looked at them and noticed their blush and the way they were looking away from each other and him. If Naruto was one thing, he was observant. He would notice details most would not, even if they held no relevance to him. So it was no surprise he noticed their slight movements on his manhood and somehow, even being as dense as he was, recognized the scent. They were aroused. Naruto chuckled. This brought Kurenai and Yugao back to his face, which was covered in a blush, and he said, "Okay, I think Kyuubi explained it. Basically only do this with you girls, but it will happen with others I find physically attractive." Yugao and Kurenai nodded, both rather eager to end such an embarrassing talk. Naruto then clapped his hands and said, "Well then we have spent about 2 hours of this morning in bed, what's another 30 minutes each?" Yugao and Kurenai looked confused until a Kage Bunshin walked in with a bed tray filled to the brim with eggs, bacon, toast, and some broth for them. I do not know what a traditional breakfast for them is. I will try to make lunches and dinners with Japanese foods. Yugao and Kurenai were a bit shocked but sat and ate in some light chatter. Kurenai spoke up as the Kage Bunshin returned the tray to the kitchen. "Well, as much as this was refreshing, I believe we need to freshen up." Yugao nodded and they both went to their own rooms to clean up and get ready for the team meeting in a few hours. Though not before kissing Naruto almost senseless. Naruto regained his senses about 5 minutes later and decided to take a quick shower before relaxing since he could not do a morning workout and it had been a while since he relaxed. He released all of his seals as he had been doing once a week to get used to his difference in speed and reflexes. He relaxed his body as he ran around the compound for a few minutes, getting his body used to the feeling and the speed. He was mildly satisfied before he returned and took a shower. He sat upon his bed and thought about all that had happened, just reminiscing the good and the bad. When all of a sudden Kyuubi came across his thoughts. Its actions of late have been awkward. A little more helpful and definitely less hostile. Kyuubi spoke up, "Oh really, Kit? So I don't seem as malicious as usual." She chuckled deeply. Naruto responded, "No actually." Kyuubi stopped chuckling, "Oh. So I haven't Well, maybe I should just return to being that big fox in your head that just gives you a headache." Naruto responded quickly, "Oh, you don't give me headaches. I quite enjoy your presence if you do not scream at me to get out." Kyuubi was quiet a few moments. Naruto was getting a little worried, but before he did anything Kyuubi's voice boomed out from his head, "Thank you, Kit. No one has ever said such a thing." Naruto pondered how quiet the voice of Kyuubi sounded when it was being sincere. Wait a minute. Naruto's mind kicked into overdrive. Why would a demon care about others' feelings? The way it had been acting of late was against all the stories the village told, and for the second time in 1 hour a stroke of brilliance went through Naruto's mind and he gasped. Mindscape. He entered his mindscape a little angry he had overlooked such an important detail. He marched across the plain showing a pale moon on one side and a library being shone upon by the moon. He was a little too angry at himself to notice. He marched right up to the trees now showing a plain with a forest, some game, and a small thunderstorm in a corner. He growled out, "Show yourself to me." Naruto took in Kyuubi with a single gaze. She was her usual 50-story high self. Still the reddish-orange tint to her coat. Wasn't she more red before? Naruto mused. Kyuubi raised one of her massive eyebrows and smirked after reading Naruto's findings. So my container finally decides to question this. Amused by this turn of events she said. "Why should I show you? What is in it for me?" Naruto growled, "I did many things for you in good faith, one thing in return is not much to ask." Kyuubi grumbled, not happy, but what he said was true. "Very well. I am surprised you figured this out though." Kyuubi immediately began changing size. Shrinking and shrinking until it was higher than Naruto and about Yugao's height. Once the light had cleared, Naruto beheld her beauty. Kyuubi was standing in all her glory, about 5 feet 6 inches with full round lips, a heart-shaped face framed by 2 bangs. Hair as blonde as the sun. An hourglass figure with large D-cup, wide hips, and legs that seemingly go on forever. All in all perfection. A demoness in her own right, but what drew Naruto were her eyes. Her eyes were not the menacing red that he had come to see. No, they were still slitted, however they were a color of yellow filled with power but seemingly benevolent. Her eyes seemed to dance with lightning sparks. He quickly tore his gaze from her and noticed her clothing. She was wearing a white kimono with yellow flashes of lightning. "Like what you see." Kyuubi smirked as she took in her container's expression. Naruto quickly schooled his face. "Why did you not tell me you were a woman? Why are your eyes yellow and not red?" He almost shouted. He was frustrated he had not considered this possibility. It changed little but seemed a big deal to him for some reason. Kyuubi smiled her fox smile and said, "Don't demand stuff from me just because you did not consider I was female. I know you do not look down on females and have saved them, hence I will assume you ask out of your own irritation and not out of incomprehensibility that a woman might be the strongest being alive. As for my eyes, that is a story for another time." Naruto was not happy. He felt like he was duped. He had been going on an assumption. He does not do that. It did not sit well with him, this revelation. How were Kurenai and Yugao going to take this? Kyuubi frowned with the way his thoughts turned. "Do not mistake me when I say this, Naruto. You are mine. My container. You are bound to my life and bound to my soul. We are stuck together so much even I doubt we could separate anymore. Demons are attracted to power. Your potential is limitless. You are the only one capable of attaining the power to rival or even defeat me." Naruto was a little scared at that concept. He worried he might have to give up the only happiness he had outside because a possessive demon inside him claimed him. He totally overlooked she called him by his name. Kyuubi saw his dilemma and said, "Do not worry about your other mate's kit. You are not ready to try and mate me. There will come a time when you realize most of your potential. When you start on that path, I will be there, as I have been through your entire life. We shall see what happens. I do not love you. I am attracted to your power. None have been close to you in power. Likely I would have to wait thousands of years for someone again. You are simply convenient for me. Even if we are stuck together, I could easily drag you wherever I wish when the seal weakens. That is all." With that being said, Kyuubi kicked him out of his mindscape. Real world. Naruto woke in his room and looked at the time only to notice he had about a half hour before team practice. He quickly went and splashed some water on his face, calming himself down. It wouldn't do to alert the girls to some problems. He figured he could gain power until he was strong enough to take Kyuubi down and keep his girls. Not in this lifetime. Kyuubi spoke up. "Naruto-sama, please do not listen to Kyuubi-san. She only seeks to weaken your resolve. Stand firm and you shall always prevail." Kamikaze spoke up for the first time since his talk with the Hokage. "Kamikaze, where have you been?" Naruto thought. "I have been reviewing some things for you, Naruto-sama, and got carried away. I am sorry for having been absent almost 2 months. I have everything remembered, so I should not need to leave you again." Kamikaze answered. "Ah." Naruto answered. When Naruto was younger, Kamikaze would go to the realm of the ancients who created him and look up some advanced stances or techniques because he had not been used. He did not remember them all. Seems even as a sword he was able to look information up. Although only on himself. Naruto pondered Kyuubi but decided he would ignore her threat and deal with it when he came to that crossroad. Yes, he would eventually cross it, but he was gaining power each day by training and he rarely ever had a day off as it was. Pushing any further would lead to exhaustion, which would lead to counterproductiveness. So decided he pushed the matter to his corner of solve later folders in his mind and headed downstairs. Yugao and Kurenai were waiting for him. He spoke up before they left. "Yugao-chan, Kurenai-chan, would it be a good idea to not be openly public about our relationship until after the Chunin exams?" They shared a look. Yugao spoke up. "Yes, it probably would. But how would we hide the living with you?" Naruto answered. "Well, we don't really have to go on popular areas as dates, and if we act normally it shouldn't be an issue. As for the house, well, with the seals no one will notice it is you entering. It will seem as if it was a plain person entered here if you have the key." Both were surprised at the seal but saw the necessity of it given who he was. They nodded agreeing and Yugao went to the Anbu headquarters as Kurenai and Naruto headed to their training ground. They had lived in the same apartment complex, so no big deal for them to arrive together. Kurenai and Naruto arrived to find Shino and Hinata waiting for them. "Hey guys," Naruto said happily. "Well, I think we should get our first C rank today. What do you think, guys?" Hinata nodded. "I think we have the skills necessary for it." Shino added. "Yes, we seem to be at an appropriate level for it." Kurenai nodded and said, "Well, let's head to the tower and see what they have. The whole team jogged to the tower for a light warm-up and walked into the door. They were greeted warmly by the Hokage, who seemed to be giving missions out. "Ah, teammate, so good of you to come here today. Let's see what D ranks we have available," he said as he reached for a scroll in the big D pile. Kurenai spoke up. "Actually, Hokage-sama, I feel my team is ready for AC rank mission." The Hokage chuckled as if expecting such a response. "I was wondering when you would ask for one. Your team has done exceptional. I have AC rank ready. You must simply go to Tanzaku-gai and wait for a man with a package. Retrieve it from him and bring it back here." Kurenai looked at her team, who seemed excited for such a mission, and said, "We accept, Hokage-sama." The Hokage took a puff of smoke and said, "Very well, you leave in an hour, dismissed." "Naruto, Kurenai, stay a moment please." Shino and Hinata left, casting glances back at their sensei and teammate. The Hokage watched as they squirmed, but he did not have time to wait them out. "As of last night, you two have no homes. I regret to inform you that your apartments burned down, and I am sure you're aware," the Hokage said with clear sadness. Naruto brightened at the Hokage's news. He was sad to lose the apartment, but nothing was damaged and it resulted in him not being as lonely. Also, he did not want the Hokage to know of their relationship just yet. "Don't worry about it, Gigi. I managed to save Yugao-chan's and Kurenai-chan's stuff and offered for them to stay with me. My house was big enough to fit them and I didn't want them to be out on the street. They can stay as long as they like." The Hokage looked owlishly. "Naruto, I only bought you that land a month ago. How did you get it up and running?" Kurenai nearly choked at hearing Naruto had built his house in a month. "That was amazing." Naruto chuckled at both their faces. "It's the same answer to your paperwork problem, Gigi." All at once the Hokage was on his knees in front of Naruto. "Please tell me how to beat paperwork. Please, I will give you anything. Anything." Sarutobi pleaded. "Sanin traveling rights for now. 2 more reasonable requests later and not telling the next Hokage so I can laugh a little before telling them," Naruto said after thinking about it a little. Sarutobi blinked at the last request but pulled a pass out of nowhere and handed it to Naruto with a puppy dog eye jutsu in effect. Kurenai's sweat dropped in the background as Naruto said, 2 words, Gigi. Kage Bunshin." The Hokage looked at Naruto, walked back to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a folder with some dust and blew it off. Naruto and Kurenai looked at the folder, reading its contents. To Sarutobi, "Please open this when you realize the answer to paperwork. Signed, Yondaime Hokage. P.S. This is not the secret, so do not open prematurely. Complete with a chibi Yondaime with a V sign." Naruto's eyes narrowed at the chibi. Sandaime opened the folder with a small burst of chakra and out popped a piece of paper. It floated to the middle of the desk and Naruto leaned in to read the writing. It contained a circle in the middle of the paper with the words, "Place head here." The Sandaime looked at it and started to bang his head, muttering, "Stupid, stupid, stupid." Kurenai's sweat dropped at seeing her leader hurting himself and decided it was time to leave. Naruto and Kurenai headed home to pack for the mission. At home, it had taken minimal time to get ready, and even with the Hokage holding them up, they had about 40 minutes before they had to meet the rest of the team. Naruto decided to get to know Kurenai a bit more. He knew she liked the color crimson, but that was about it for her more personal life. Obviously she hated perverts, liked genjutsu, seemed to enjoy the fragrance of vanilla, and had friends in Anko, Yugao, and the rest of the Junin senseis. "So Kurenai-chan, I would like to know a bit more about you." Naruto started as they lounged on the sofa. "Well, what would you like to know, Naruto-kun?" Kurenai replied with a mischievous smirk. "How about some hobbies?" Naruto said after pondering a bit. "Well, I like to read folk tales. It gives me ideas for genjutsu. The different things some writers come up with are astounding," Kurenai said with enthusiasm. "How about a favorite food? Favorite accessory?" Naruto questioned, trying for more information. "Well, I like yakitori especially. My favorite accessory would have to be some earrings, though I cannot wear them on any missions." So lipstick is always good. But what about you? Kurenai said, turning it around. Well, I like to collect scrolls that people throw away actually. You would be surprised at the useful things people throw away. As for a favorite food, I don't really have one, though if I were pressed I would say ramen. My favorite accessory is a haori. Naruto responded. But I think we are done for now. We need to meet the team in about 10 minutes. Kurenai nodded and they headed out to their meeting place, leaving a note to Yugao that they would be gone about a week. Kurenai and Naruto arrived at the gates and waited for Shino and Hinata to arrive. They had been enjoying the silence for about 5 minutes before Shino and Hinata came up and Kurenai spoke. Okay, this is our first mission outside the city walls. Be careful. Just because this is AC rank does not mean it isn't dangerous. Naruto will take point. He is our hard hitter and with his enhanced senses will be able to tell if there are traps. Shino next, watching the left side and keeping Naruto covered should he engage. I am next covering the right side. I will fall back and use my genjutsu or assist Hinata. Hinata is watching our backs with the Byakugan. Everyone ready? She looked at their determined faces and said, move out. Time skip 3 days. They arrived in Tanzakugai a little behind schedule. They had run into some bandits that assumed they could take on a team. Naruto and Kurenai had made short work of them. Shino and Hinata were still not sure of killing, so Naruto took the initiative and killed 3 of the 5 before they could blink, and Kurenai had the other 2 down in the same time frame. They had spent the rest of the trip in uncomfortable silence. Naruto was hoping they would ask their questions before it interfered with their teamwork. They had seen him kill before, but with all the information loaded to them afterwards, it seemed to have fled their minds. This was fresh. Anyo. Naruto-kun, how can you be some comfortable killing? Hinata finally spoke up as they were nearing the village. Kurenai was about to respond when Naruto spoke. Hinata-chan, what would happen if I simply knocked them out and released them afterwards? They would continue on their rampage, Naruto. Shino spoke up in his monotone voice, finally understanding Naruto's calmness. Exactly, Shino. When I was younger, I would go kill bandits to enhance my skills. I was doing a service. Bandits are some of the worst of the worst. They rape, pillage, and kill without mercy. Tell me, why should I allow someone like that to live when he attacks me? Naruto questioned. I do not relish killing them, Hinata-chan, but it is a necessary part of my life. I have said it before, I will say it again. Do not relish it, but do it because it is necessary. I will kill because I have found my peace in doing what I do. Now you must do the same. For the next time I may not be able to kill them before they reach you. Kurenai nodded when Hinata looked at her for confirmation. Now let's get settled in our rooms. It has been a long day and we all need our rest. Tomorrow we are to receive the package. Kurenai said and led them to their hotel. The girls shared a room while the boys had their own room and each went to sleep thinking about what Naruto had said. It had been 3 days since they arrived in Tanzaku. They had decided to wait a minimum of 3 days before returning and stating the mission a failure. Currently, Shino and Hinata were roaming the streets looking for the client under guise of a young couple in henges. Kurenai and Naruto were sitting in the cafe they were supposed to meet the client, sipping on some tea. Well, Kurenai-chan, since we have some time, let's finish our discussion from before. Naruto said. Kurenai looked confused before remembrance shone in her eyes. They were on a little date, so Naruto decided to treat it as such. What else would you like to know? Naruto responded almost instantly. Since you read books, do you collect anything to do with them? He had thought about what he wanted to ask and had about 3 things he wanted confirmed before they finished this mission. Of course, even with them relaxing, they still kept their eyes open. Kurenai blushed and responded in a quiet voice, I collect bookmarks. It was one of the more awkward things a shinobi might collect, but she liked reading and bookmarks were very useful. She had grown a liking to ones with smart kotas on them. Naruto nodded. His first question confirmed he had run across some interesting details after having meditated from sealing their rooms. A favorite color or colors? Kurenai responded. I like crimson because it reminds me of your attack. Lately I seem to have developed a liking to golden yellow. She said, admitting her liking of his hair. Naruto smirked. Like my hair He chuckled at the blush that spread across his sensei's face. Anything you like to collect besides bookmarks, perhaps something that might be seen as a weakness. Staring at her in a, I know something you probably didn't want me to know yet, type of way. Kurenai started sweating. No. Naruto grinned his fox grin. So that crimson dog plushie that was on your bed is just a decoration. Kurenai cursed. She had forgotten he sealed her entire room. She sighed, deciding to give up. Okay, I like to collect plushy toys. For some reason it placates my need for soft things in a hard world. Naruto smiled. Thank you for telling me, now I know a little more about you. He was genuinely happy that he managed to get her to admit it. They went back to enjoying themselves, making a little small talk while waiting for the client. About a half hour later, the client stumbled up to them and handed the package, which looked ripped. Kurenai raised an eyebrow and questioned the man, but he just said to get it to the Hokage without delay and left. That was weird. Kurenai said. Hinata, Shino, we are leaving. Go pack, meet us at the exit to the village in 20 minutes. Kurenai said through the radio, and Kurenai and Naruto headed to the meeting point with the package. 18 minutes later they were on their way home. Time skip. The trip home was uneventful despite the appearance of the package. They were not attacked, and arrived at Konoha 3 days later. They immediately went through the gates and proceeded to the Hokage Tower. Upon arrival they were ushered into a briefing with the Hokage. Hokage-sama. Team 8 reporting from a successful C-rank mission. Kurenai said with authority. Very good, Kurenai. Sandame said. Report. After hearing the breakdown of the mission, leaving out the miny dates Kurenai and Naruto had, and hearing the alarming state of the messenger, he said, excellent work for your first C rank. Your pay will be available and you will have a few days off for reward of your first C rank. Dismissed. Team 8 filed out of the room and everyone went to their separate homes. Kurenai and Naruto arrived home and Naruto spoke up, well, I am going to head to take a shower and head to bed. You should relax, Kurenai-chan, and take it easy. Good night. With that he kissed her full on the lips before hurrying to his room. Kurenai stood there a little while, amused at his shyness after kissing her. She decided she was going to soak in the hot springs before heading to bed. She entered her room and made her preparations and then headed to the hot springs. Kurenai entered the hot springs only to hear the splash of another using the hot spring. She came around the changing partition and saw Yugao soaking in the water. Ohio Yugao, Kurenai said. Yugao jumped before replying. A little miffed, she had been caught off guard. Ohio Kurenai, how was the mission? It was fine, Naruto, and I got in some interesting little dates. Kurenai responded and continued to regale her fellow Naruto lover on their little talks and some of his personal info. You should go sleep with him tonight. I got some dates and I am sure he would appreciate it. Yugao nodded, having been thinking the same thing, and took her leave. Naruto climbed into bed fresh from his shower. He was happy with his first C rank. It had been relatively easy and he got to spend some more time with Kurenai. He only wished Yugao could have accompanied them. Once that thought crossed his mind, he heard his door open. He looked up to see Yugao in an overlarge shirt barely hiding her, and she spoke, could I sleep with you tonight, Naruto-kun? Naruto was more than happy to let the girl sleep with him and responded instantly, of course, Murasaki Harem. Yugao smiled and climbed into bed on his left side, pressing herself into his side once again as she had 1 week ago. How was the house while we were gone, Harem? Naruto asked. Lonely, was Yugao's wistful sigh. I heard your mission was a success. Yes, and I learned a bit more about Kurenai, but now it's your turn. Naruto said. Oh, so you want to know the same things about me, Well, since you searched my room, I guess there is no point in hiding it. Just know what I say has never been told to anyone else. Yugao said. Naruto chuckled. What, no fight? I had to wrestle some of it out of Kurenai, but whatever you want to tell me, I am all ears. I will always listen to you girls. Yugao kissed him and started, I like swords as you can tell. What everyone doesn't know is I like collecting bracelets. Ankles and the ones for your wrists. I also like collecting mugs or antique cups. Especially ones with funny sayings on it. Naruto nodded. After each of these he had noticed this about her trinkets when he sealed her things. Now one thing even you may not know is that I love looking at the moon. Naruto's eyes widened a little. He had not known that or deduced it. It pleases me and sets me at ease almost as much as you do. Naruto smiled. That's it for tonight though, Naruto-kun, get some rest. I will be here in the morning. Naruto kissed Yugao one last time. Arigato, Murasaki Harem. He laid his head down and went to sleep. Time skip 2 months. Naruto and the girls had taken to leaving the village and going to little towns about a half a day's travel to take little dates on their days off. No one had seemed to take notice and they were leaving it that way. Naruto's team had taken a couple more C ranks but remained doing D ranks for now. Naruto was off training in the training grounds while Kurenai and Yugao enjoyed a rare mutual day off. Naruto had revamped their wardrobe and he had bought them whatever they wanted. He was spoiling them and they knew it. He knew it too. He just wanted them to live like he thought they should, and if he could provide it for them he was going to give it to them. Naruto's resistance seal was up to 6. He was almost ready for 7. You know, Naruto-sama, the first difficult kenjutsu master you face in battle will probably unlock my true form for you. Kamikaze spoke up. He had mentioned this a few times but it never came to anything. He would have to fight missing nins for someone to be powerful enough to awaken Kamikaze. Spars would not do. Yes, I cannot wait until the higher missions. The thrill of the battle. The feeling is you kill a worthy opponent. Kyuubi spoke. Yes, fighting a worthy opponent will definitely be worthwhile, though not for what you think of it, Kyuubi. Naruto responded. I cannot wait either. Naruto-sama, fighting against a worthy blade will be amazing. Kamikaze spoke up, completing the feelings of want for battle between the trio as Naruto sheathed Kamikaze and made his way home. With Kurenai and Yugao, they were both lounging in the living room. They had on some mindless sitcom as they enjoyed their day off. Naruto had plans to take them to a festival tonight. All of a sudden the doorbell rang. Yugao said, I'll get it. Yugao got up and padded to the door and pulled it open. She was met by an Anbu with a nay symbol on its head, and the Anbu spoke up. The council would like to see you and Yuahi-san in the council chambers now, with a monotone voice. Yugao was sure this was something bad. So she responded while keeping her Anbu face on, I need to get presentable. We will be there shortly. Yugao closed the door and headed to Kurenai and informed her of the predicament. They got ready and left Naruto a note to bring the Hokage to the council chambers once he got back. He should be arriving soon. They opened the door to the same Anbu unit and Shunshine directly outside the chambers. Wait here, the Anbu operative said and entered the chambers. Kurenai and Yugao waited patiently until they were called in and entered the chambers. They were met by the civilian council with Danzo, an ex-Anbu commander with a penchant for stirring up trouble and being a warmonger. Do you know why you are here, Yuahi-san, Azuki-san? A pink-haired councilwoman said. No. They replied. We are here to discuss the young boy currently on your team, Yuahi-san. She replied. Yugao and Kurenai's eyebrows rose. This was not going to be pretty. It has come to our attention that the two of you have been seen entering and exiting Konoha, seemingly going on personal excursions into the nearby towns. What business is it of yours what we do with Uzumaki-san? Yugao questioned, more privy to the council's working than Kurenai. Danzo spoke up. It is our business because young Uzumaki should not be cavorting with women. The boy should not be given the chance to continue his line. Yugao and Kurenai bristled. What we do with Naruto-kun is none of your business. Kurenai finally said. It seems our conditioning did not work, Haruno-san. Danzo said. Kurenai narrowed her eyes. What conditioning? Naruto said. The council was taken aback by the sudden appearance of Naruto within the room. What conditioning, Haruno-san, Danzo-san? Naruto questioned. The conditioning to make you dislike women. Did you ever wonder why my daughter constantly beat you? The council gave her a mission to beat you in the head, hoping for some brain damage and to keep you from creating demon spawn. The Haruno councilwoman screeched. Danzo, have your root Anbu take these women and remove their, how shall we say, what makes them women so that there is no chance for them to bear children. Yugao and Kurenai sent death glares at the council. Root. Danzo said. All of a sudden 4 root Anbu appeared holding each of the girls' arms and attempted to shunshin away. Naruto muttered. Kai, the counter on his seal dropped to 0. He disappeared in a burst of speed, and before any of the Anbu could move they were beheaded, and Kurenai and Yugao were by the doors leading outside. Danzo's eyes widened. I barely saw him move. He must be close to the Yondaime's speed. But before he could do anything, things went to hell. Naruto had his head down with his sword dripping blood. His eyes were being shadowed by his bangs. You dare to hurt someone just because they are close to me? He asked in a deadly silent voice. Haruno screeched. They are demon lovers, of course we who you are K. She was stopped as she choked on the ki exuding from Naruto. Oh, this is going to be good. Kill them, Kit. They dared attack your mates. Kyuubi smirked from his mindscape. She was not lending anything to the impressive display of power coming from Naruto. For once I must agree with Kyuubi-san, protect those precious to you, Naruto-sama. Kamikaze said. Crimson and gold started swirling around Naruto. None of the maliciousness of Kyuubi, simply an overwhelming sense of certain death. The council members were choking in their seats, and even Danzo had a bead of sweat coming down his face. The council chamber's door flew open and there stood the Sandaime with the ninja council heads. There were 5 council heads with 3 open seats. The 5 council seats taken up were Hyuga Hiyashi, Aburame Shibi, Inazuka Sume, Nara Shikaku, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Akamichi Shuza, each for their respective clans. The ones not being represented were the Namikaze, Uchiha, and Senju. The Hokage held his own council seat, bringing the total ninja council seats to 9. The Hokage was impressed by the show of Naruto. Even he had not known he was this powerful. Naruto-kun, please calm down. They will be punished for their actions. Thank you for sending me that cage bunshin and gathering the other council heads in the same manner. Kurenai and Yugao, seeing Naruto not calming down, put their hands on his shoulders, and Naruto looked into their eyes with his crimson eyes with the S pattern. He sighed and flicked his blade, cleaning it of the blood. Very good, Naruto-sama. Kamikaze spoke up. TCH shoulda killed them. Kyuubi said. Naruto calmed down and his eyes bled back to the usual sapphire blue. He looked at the Hokage and bowed. Hokage-sama, Hiyashi-sama, Shibi-sama, Sume-sama, Shikaku-sama, Inoichi-sama, Shuza-sama. I thank you for coming on such short notice. Each of the council heads nodded in response and went to take their seats. The Hokage snapped his fingers and Anbu came in and removed the 4 dead root members. What is the council doing questioning 2 of my shinobi? The Hokage asked, fire in his eyes. Danzo's eyes sparkled. The god of shinobi was in session. He had seen Sarutobi get this light back ever since a few years ago. Now it was in full flame. Kurenai spoke up. Hokage-sama, they admitted to trying to get Naruto to not be able to have kids by conditioning him to not like girls and think natural reactions were looked down upon as perverted. Also, they threatened to. At this, Kurenai choked up. Naruto wrapped his arms around both of them and held them close, his sword hanging in front of his 2 girls with his seals still released, ready to fight should the need arise, as they bawled. They threatened to remove Yugao-chan's and Kurenai-chan's ovaries. Naruto spat out. The Hokage's eyes widened. What gave you the right to do such a thing to 2 respected members of the shinobi force? Cold steel in his voice. Haruno screeched yet again, man, can't she be quiet? They are seeing the dem, I mean boy. He should not be allowed to create little spawn. The Hokage fixed her with a stare and said, listen here, this is a shinobi village. As such it is not a democracy, what I say goes. I am the Hokage and you will not be threatening one of my shinobi with such a thing again. If I hear a hint of such a thing, you will be charged with treason and executed. Do I make myself clear? The Hokage bellowed. The civilian council shivered in their seats and nodded. The Hokage fixed Danzo with a stare. Danzo reluctantly nodded, knowing he was caught and that Sarutobi could execute him for keeping Root alive. Now get out of these chambers, we have shinobi business to discuss. The civilian council filed out of the chambers and Danzo reluctantly left. Homura and Kaharu walked in. They were the village elders and were present at most council meetings. Naruto inclined his head again. Homura-san, Kaharu-san. Some of the council heads were a bit shocked at the lack of respect, but all they saw was Homura and Kaharu shrug it off with some minor tightening of their lips. Now that is out of the way, the Hokage started. I had planned to wait to reveal this to you, Naruto, but it seems this is as good a time as any. Naruto's eyebrows rose and he unsealed a sofa for him and the girls. He laid Kurenai down on his lap and Naruto started to stroke her hair and Yugao leant on his arm as he made little circles on her hands, making a motion to proceed since he was comfortable. The council sweat dropped at his actions, but taking into account the traumatic experience they just went through allowed it. The Hokage cleared his throat and started, Naruto-kun, you have exceptionally high senses, even higher than our own Inuzuka clans. Sume snorted but could not deny the tests. As such, the council has been debating on allowing you to make your own clan within the village so as to continue such great abilities. The Hokage finished. Naruto's eyebrows rested back to their normal state and he responded, you are not even sure if my abilities will be passed on or if it is a perk of my Jinchuriki status. Kyuubi spoke up, it will be passed on, Kit. I made sure of it once I noticed your senses. Naruto came back to the world of the living and said, ah, never mind. I heard Kamikaze confirm it. He shared a knowing look with the Hokage. The council had been informed of the sword Naruto had. Some of the civilians had attempted to get him to give it to Sasuke, but once the Hokage had explained the defense mechanism, they left it alone. So Naruto-kun, what would you say to starting your own clan? It would require you to marry multiple women, which you seem to have a start on already. The Hokage wiped his nose discreetly. You would gain a seat on the council once you gain Chunin status, and you can claim any newly made jutsu as clan techniques. Naruto looked down at his Megami and whispered to his girls. What do you think? Kurenai whispered, well, this is the only way to marry us both. Though I am not sure if it will go that far, it seems it will at this point. I had always wanted a large family. The thought of claiming my techniques as my own and not being forced to give them up sounds nice. I think all in all it's a win-win. Just not too many wives, Naruto-kun. Yugao whispered straight in his ear and down at Kurenai, I agree with Kurenai. I do not want my personal sword techniques to be used just by anyone, and I would love to marry you in the future if everything works out. Naruto nodded and said, how many wives, by what time, and do I get my own place or will I have to buy another plot of land? The Hokage was overjoyed. This set his grandson on a path to happiness. He could see what the three had and hoped it would endure. I believe the minimum we had said was 3 by the end of your 15th year. All of the clan heads nodded. Naruto spoke up, I pick my brides, no one picks for me. I will not marry if not for love. The council did not seem too worried but agreed, and the Hokage said, very well, Naruto-kun. That gives you about a year and a month to find another woman. We will expect the name of your clan by then. Naruto nodded and the Hokage dismissed the meeting. Naruto uttered one last advice. Do not send your daughters to me looking to wed. I will sniff them out and they will be rebuffed. If they seek my friendship and turn it into love, they will be given their fair attempt. With that, Naruto, Kurenai, Yugao, and the sofa disappeared. Kamikaze spoke up once they got home. Naruto-sama, any ideas for your clan name? Kyuubi spoke up, something foxy-like. Naruto responded, I have no idea. I will think on it later. I have 2 women to tend to. Naruto took Kurenai and Yugao to his room and sent KB to their room to get their nightclothes. They both seemed to wear little over large shirts that would show off their bras and panties when they would move around. Kurenai's was crimson and Yugao was amber. He asked the girls, "Would you two like me to wash you in the hot springs tonight? Then we can go to sleep with my high-level security seals." Yugao and Kurenai nodded. Naruto took them to the changing room and they all got their towels on. Naruto washed their backs and they sat in a comfortable silence while soaking within the spring. He was not going to leave them alone, not after that threat. They finished their bath and headed for the bed. Kurenai took her right side and Yugao took the left. He spoke up once he was sure they were settled. "Megami-chan, Murasaki Harem, you will never have to worry about such a thing. I will protect you from everything. Nothing will harm you so long as I draw breath." Kurenai and Yugao teared up and kissed Naruto with such passion he was dazed. "Arigato," they both said and fell asleep peaceful that Naruto would protect them. "Sleep well, my little slice of heaven, sleep easy, my little kingdom of paradise." With that, Naruto closed his eyes and drew his loves closer to him.